we'll try to do something like that. And so let me read, I'm going to read this Stephen Heller foreword first, and then we could do a quick check-in about how the Fool connects into the minor arcana. That would make a lot of sense. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, we are online, live on YouTube. And so let us begin. Good evening, everyone. Today we're going to begin our consideration of the minor arcana. And as a part of that, I'm going to read a foreword to this book, Tarot and the Tree of Life. It's by Finding Everyday Wisdom in the Minor Arcana, and it is by Isabel Radau Kligman. But I'm going to read the foreword, which is by Stephen Heller, who we've been reading right along in his The Fool's Journey. I didn't go back to find what he had to say in that. Maybe I'll do it during our discussion today. But in order to give an idea of the minor arcana, these are typically events that happen in people's lives. They're not structural archetypes, like as in the gods, or things that you have no choice about. You will do these major arcana in your lifetime. But some of my colleagues may disagree with me on that. But I'm just going to read Stephen Heller's foreword to this book. So here's what he says. Interest in the mysterious tarot is at an all-time high. Only a few short decades ago, one had to send to distant and obscure sources if one wished to procure a deck of these intriguing cards, for they could not be found in local bookstores or even at dealers of antiquities. A choice among several designs was unknown. One was lucky to find even a solitary deck. Today, there is a profusion of tarot decks on the market. One could spend a fortune if one desired even the majority of decks of various designs available. What then is the tarot? Ostensibly, it is a series of 78 playing cards displaying symbolic designs, many of which claim ancient provenance. While such enthusiastic claims may appear exaggerated, admirable and insightful, persons over the centuries have expressed views not unlike these. Madame Helen Blavatsky, the redoubtable founder of the Theosophical movement in the late 19th century, is said to have carried an old hand-painted tarot deck in her battered suitcase for many travels. My neighbor in the Hollywood Hills, Aldous Huxley, a few months prior to his death in 1963, became vitally interested in the tarot and asked a mutual friend to procure a deck for him. Albert Einstein was known to study the tarot on certain occasions. Shakespeare refers to tarot cards, or at least to cartomancy, in Hamlet, Act 5, Scene 1, when he writes, quote, how absolute the knave is. We must speak by the card, or equivocation will undo us. But perhaps the most impressive tribute came from the French magus and Kabbalist Eliphas Levi, whose real name was Alphonse Louis Constant, who stated that if one were confined for a long period in a deep dungeon or on a secluded island, one would only need a tarot deck to keep one informed and inspired. Tarot cards are the oldest form of playing cards handed down to us. In a more credulous age, the esotericism, it was sometimes assumed that they could be traced as far back as the times of fabled Atlantis. It was sometimes assumed that the Chaldean or Egyptian initiates received the tarot from Atlantis and eventually carried it to Europe. At the turn of the last century, the French leading light of esotericism, Papas, Dr. Girard and Cosse, or I guess that's in Cosse, was equally convinced that the tarot originated in India and that its four suits symbolize the four principal castes: cups for priests, swords for warrior rulers, coins for merchants, and wands for agricultural laborers. The mysterious gypsies, whose origins might well be in India, then carried the tarot cards into Europe and from there to America as well. Certainly in my childhood, I observed the divinatory activities of many gypsies who employed tarot cards as well as a deck that is closely related to the tarot called tarot. Tarot wisdom was often passed on through the oldest wise woman in the tribe. Most gypsies I encounter believe that they, as well as their divinatory arts, originated in India. Aside from such informal accounts, the mystery of the origins of these cards remains unsolved. There is virtually no factual information available about the history of the cards and their symbols past the early centuries of this era. We can't even be sure that the word tarot, what the tarot means, the word tarot means. Some have suggested that it comes from an Egyptian hybrid word meaning royal road. This hypothesis is unproven, though very frequently accepted. The experiences one has using the tarot deck tend to leave a lasting impression. As a student and practitioner of the tarot, I can certainly attest to this. Some of my greatest joys and deepest regrets were connected with information I received by way of the cards. One card, which I drew at a particularly critical time in my life, instructed me to await some singularly promising opportunities which were hastening my way. As I managed to take advantage of the opportunity thus arising, or so I discerned from the symbolism of the card that was before me, I would be lifted out of my sorrow and hopelessness and carried to exciting places. The prophecy of the tarot was fulfilled in 3 days' time. A more tragic incident started with a telephone call from a close friend who had decided to undergo heart surgery. The card I drew from my deck to illuminate the matter turned out to be the major arcana card called the Tower, which carries catastrophic implications. Despite my apprehension, I refrained from advising my friend against the surgery, since he was quite enthusiastic about the prospect. As a result of the complications arising from surgery, my friend died in great agony some 3 weeks later. I still feel a good deal of guilt for the sin of omission I committed by not cautioning him more vigorously on the basis of the tarot prognostication. As the author of this book tells us, the uses of the tarot are manifold. In my experience, I have found 3. First, the tarot serves as a pictorial textbook of the universal symbolic philosophy and cosmology. Second, the plan and structure of the deck depicts the structure and development of the human psyche, somewhat in the manner envisioned by the analytical psychologist C.G. Jung. Last and most controversial use of the tarot is, of course, divination, which, as Isabel Klegman wisely reminds us, is a very different thing from fortune telling. In ancient times, divination was the art whereby one consulted the gods, who were also known as divinities. The ancients believed that these divinities are essentially benignly disposed toward humans, and thus are likely to offer useful guidance and advice when consulted. While the belief in divinities is not particularly great in our day, the philosophy of divination that developed on the basis of such a belief is still valid. In order to effectively consult on authentic oracle such as the tarot, we must first of all possess an attitude that is appropriate for the invoking of helpful forces or a superior character. The proper attitude is one that lies somewhere between superstitious awe and frivolousness. If we employ an oracle in the idle jest, the results will be appropriate. At the same time, it is good to be reminded that the cards in themselves are not sacred objects worthy of veneration. We need not keep them in precious containers, wrap them in red silk, or approach them in elaborate ceremonies. The magic is not in the cards, but in ourselves. That what matters is the response the cards evoke from the deeper regions of our psyches. All else is of small importance. The divinities I refer to above may be most profitably envisioned as at least related to psychological archetypes, if indeed they are not themselves the archetypes. Another important requisite for accurate divination is what has been called magical imagination. This is the ability to relate meaningfully subjective or psychic reality to the material clues of the cards. A talent for this kind of imagination may be found to some degree in most folk, but with skill, one may foster its growth. The once very prominent Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn used the tarot expressly as a tool for developing the magical imagination. These days, much publicity is given to the ideas which are directed to what is called creating one's reality. It is my view that most of these teachings are nothing more than an excessive application of the principles of magical imagination. It is not very likely that we shall ever truly create our own reality, but with the aid of the tarot, we may discover a reality that is vastly preferable to the humdrum consensus reality in which the majority of our culture lives. Isabel Kligman, who's the author of this book, is one of the most truly skilled and sensitive practitioners of the tarot I know. A number of years ago, it was my good fortune to introduce her to this field of study and practice, and the strides she has made since that time impressed me deeply. As the following pages reveal, her greatest dedication has been to the so-called minor arcana, or the 4 suits of numbered cards of the tarot, including their uniquely powerful and revelatory court cards of kings, knights, kings, queens, knights, and pages. While many of us are justly fascinated by and devoted to the sublime archetypal images embodied in the major arcana, the trump cards, it is obvious that the minor arcana, with their symbols of the manifest cosmos, are of immense significance also, although this significance is often overlooked or neglected. This neglect has now been insightfully and eloquently remedied by the author of this book, which may well become the normative text on the minor arcana. Even as the splendid work of the late Paul Foster Case, The Tarot, A Key to the Wisdom of the Ages, is still the basic text on the major arcana, my much more humble book, The Royal Road, Kabbalistic Meditation on the Tarot, published by Quest in 1975, may still serve the student of the tarot who wishes to use the cards of the major arcana as visual tools for meditating on the symbolic contents of the cards. But the present work may be said to pick up where mine leaves off. Readers who enjoyed my efforts in The Royal Road will assuredly be delighted when they follow it up with the reading of Tarot and the Tree of Life. The Tarot is an endless source of wonder and delight to those who enter its inner precincts. Still, its practice and study are somewhat curtailed when not combined with the mystical system of the Kabbalah. Although Eliphas Levi is generally credited with making the connection between the Tarot and the Kabbalah available, the most effective advocate of this connection was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, an organization that in spite of its brief public functioning, exerted an immense influence on the Western esoteric tradition. My late friend, Dr. Israel Regardie, one of the last adepts of that order, always held that without the Kabbalah, the Tarot tends to become a mere plaything. The author of the Tarot and the Tree of Life has earned the gratitude of those of us who respect the Golden Dawn and its teachings. Anyone reading this book will never again wish to separate the disciplines of Tarot and Kabbalah. Often when I contemplate the cards of the Tarot, I perceive a sunlit medieval landscape with small luminous figures moving like magical toy figurines. The Fool with staff and bundle, the Emperor on rock-hewn throne, the Empress in her flowering garden of delights. Death is reaping his harvest of souls. The Hermit climbs unscaled heights with staff and lamp, and the hanged man swings serenely from his gibbet. To these, we may now add, as a result of Isabel Kligman's efforts, the Queen of Cups gazing in rapt attention at her mystical grail, the Knight of Swords charging into furious battle, the Hand of God holding the aces of the four suits, and many more. Behind them all looms the Holy Tree of Life, mystical diagram of the heavenly human, and map of the ascent of the soul to its final home. The 10 sacred vessels glow with the luminosity of a world in which things are never what they seem, but are revealed in their meaning that is ordinarily concealed. While the 22 flaming letters pulsate on the branches of the tree, perhaps a vision similar to this may arise in the minds of some who read this book. Of one thing, however, we may be certain: whatever visions and feelings we may be stimulated by such reading, boredom and lack of inspiration will not be among them. So I've been reading from the foreword to Tarot and the Tree of Life, Finding Everyday Wisdom in the Minor Arcana by Isabel Rattle Kligman, and that was Stephen Heller's foreword. I just want to mention that his story about his friend who died in a surgery reminded me of something that my orthopedic surgeon said to me when we were talking about what I was doing now before he decided to replace my knee. And he said that one time one of his patients came to him and said that he had had a dream and he believed that he shouldn't go ahead with the surgery. This was a day or two before he was scheduled to have his knee surgery. And so my doctor said, I always believe such things. And so, of course, I rescheduled his surgery. And 3 days later, he had a heart attack and survived. But if he had had a knee surgery, he might well have died on the operating table. So we have to pay attention to these things. And that's a very interesting experience. Now, I'm going to give my colleagues the opportunity to comment on what I've just read, and we're bringing in a few new guests. And I'm going to take a short bio break, and then I will talk about an overview of how we're going to approach the Minor Arcana. So welcome to Nicole Wilson and iPad Blake and all of our other new folks. And so I'm going to excuse myself for a moment, and Nick and Jordan, if you want to proceed for a couple minutes, that would be great.
Excellent. You want to start off, Nick? Sure. I guess I would just say that I really enjoyed how he pretty much explained the Kabbalah and the Tarot as being two inseparable systems now that they've been brought together. And for those of you that I sent those Christmas gifts out to, you now have all the pieces of that puzzle. If you so wish to start piecing it together, all the information is there. And I would just say that, I have personally spent a lot of time doing that, and it's really been an extremely fruitful exercise. I don't use tarot as a tool for divination, but just as a meditative tool and a tool for contemplation. And I'm an adherent to the teachings of the Kabbalah and the Golden Dawn and stuff like that. So I can't really speak to the card reading aspects of what he said, but in terms of a meditative tool, it is a tool par excellence.
I would second that, and it's interesting to me when he says, tarot without Kabbalah is pretty much folly. I love the way he put that, though, because it wasn't disparaging. It was that, hey, these are integral. Like there's a skeleton and there's a body, and the Kabbalah is kind of that hidden bridge or invisibridge. I mean, I personally, the 22 paths on the Tree of Life, each one then corresponding with one of the 22 major arcana, I find just inform intuition and divination in a reading session, for example, that sometimes something from the Tree of Life, and oftentimes some part of it that I know less than some part that I'm a little more schooled in, will just come to mind with a card, and then I'll all of a sudden remember, oh, right, these there's just this left foot, right foot thing going on that really drives conscious. I call it the conscious doodle. I mean, it's like the conscious mark of self with the Colleen's project is kind of giving me some new words here, but in regards to consciously experiencing the unconscious, intuition and creativity, but verbally. And it's interesting that personally, I mean, imagistic writing, pictures, the visual language is my mother tongue. English comes a close second, but I think in images, I feel in images, and I'm always in kind of a translation. But what I really dug, especially about that foreword, is that 1, 2, 3 breakdown he shared, where then divination was a portion of it, but then there was the other two bigger components, I think, that that really give some good girth to the divination, and I think give the divination a place to stand. So that foreword is a great, I think, almost foundation for anyone to read, because there's a whole history that he synopsized. I felt in a way like I was getting really good Cliff's Notes writer, Yeah.
There's one more thing that I'll add, and I mean, it's kind of just building on what you were saying, and it's really, I guess, just an intuition, but I think it's safe to say that most people that approach the tarot are people with a strong predilection for visual thought and visual learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely instructive and helpful in that way. And I think also, when you look at the Tree of Life, it's a glyph. I wouldn't so much say that it's an image. But, when you start thinking about the connection and the relationship and the harmony and disharmony between these spheres and the paths that connect them, as a concept, maybe or maybe not, you can get your head around it. I don't know. It's not extremely easy unless you really spend a lot of time kind of banging yourself over the head with it. But then when you put a tarot image between them, it is like this missing piece. It really facilitates several aha moments.
Well, and I'm glad you called it a glyph. I've started to notice, even when studying, getting back into like Michael D. Coe's breaking the Maya code, and the stele, the glyphs on the stele, the vertical columns in various Mayan temples, and I start to notice these little fragment Tree of Life sentences, like, oh wait, this portion of this that would just plug right in there, and it's just amazing to me how much just that simple correspondence can reach out and jive with and interact with and synchronize with so many other systems in a very intelligible way that's useful, educational, and I think it's good for just literally, like, this is a roadmap for life. It teaches us how to live. And I loved especially his example that if you went to a desert island and you only had a tarot deck, you would have everything you need to stay informed. You know, you could do your morning, what's my state of the union of the psyche today kind of thing.
Yeah, that quote from Eliphas Levi runs something more like, well, it has to do with a prisoner. And it's funny, I think actually Alphonse Louis Constant was actually one of the first kind of humanist or socialists, and he was kind of a political reformer and has all this political writing, and I think he actually spent time in prison too, so he may be speaking from direct
so he knows that he had one thing in prison, and that was his island. It got him through.
Anyway, let's hear from somebody else.
Okay, well, let me just add my overview of how we're going to approach this over the next few weeks as we enter the minor arcana, and then we'll talk about that. So the minor arcana talk about basically everything that we run into in life in a very shorthand way, but it's a good way to educate youth about the things that we run into in our everyday life. And so there are traditionally 4 suits, now 5, which I'll discuss in a moment, but I first want to just address the 4 suits. You can think of it as God creating the earth, okay? So first is creation, and that is the wands. So we will begin with the wands next week. Samantha is going to give us a presentation on the wands next week. And then once you create human beings, then you realize you've also created emotion. And so that is the cups. And so Jordan has agreed to handle the cups. And then once you have emotion that's just going around out there in that ball of chaos, you need a way to organize it and discern what you should do with it. And so that's the swords. And Nick is going to, 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, I guess, Nick is going to give us an evening on the swords. And then finally, if you organize your civilization, then you can make things and do things. And that creates materialistic things like wealth. And that's the Pentacles suit. And if sometimes these are associated also with the Myers-Briggs type indicator, where the pentacles are sensing, so you sense, how you can get wealthy and that sort of thing. But the wands are intuition about how you can create something. The cups are still how we emotionally become involved with things. And then the swords are the thinking, which is how we create civilization and build our civilization. And then the 5th suit, I will talk about 5 weeks from now, God willing, and the creek don't rise, which was introduced to us by our friend Patricia, or to me by our friend Patricia, and therefore I've pushed it out to several of our members, and that has to do with the 5th element, which is human beings and what we bring to the party, because we are actually the bridge that can bridge all divides. So we don't have to be relegated to Manichaean dualism all the time. We are the bridge that can bring things together. And so I'll be talking, there is a tarot deck called the Fifth Tarot. We've been talking about it somewhat over previous weeks, but I will present the fifth suit that the Fifth Tarot gives us. And so in the Fifth Tarot deck, there are actually 92 cards, not 78. And so I'll be doing that in 5 weeks' time. But in any case, I'm going to shut up and ask my colleagues to comment on two things. One is how the fool gets himself in trouble and fits into all these suits, and then just about the minor arcana in general, if you will. So go ahead, folks. Who wants to talk?
I'll talk.
Okay, go ahead.
I was a practitioner of tarot. So just like the author that you just mentioned, I've experienced all sorts of life changing. At last minute, I would consult and, oh, I guess I better leave now because it looks dreadful here. Better leave Florida and go back to New York. Looks much better there. And within 24 hours, Hurricane Andrew came by and practically destroyed Miami. So I learned about the tarot by experiencing it. I knew nothing about its relationship to Kabbalah. And I come from being Catholic, but I practice other things. And I actually wrote a whole musical about the tarot. And it's an initiation, in my estimation. It's the initiation. And it takes you through all the aspects of initiation until the Ouroboros meets its tail. And I can give you exact details. And it's through experience that I discovered it. And when something is so universal, then all other universal, like the Tree of Life or the Kabbalah or any other, will fit into it, will find a way. I can bring the Northern European tradition and it will fit right into it because they're all, it's a story of life. I'd call it, it's a story of life. And it has many levels, and perhaps the fifth one is the actual journeying through all the different stages, which I can tell you what they are, but on some other time. But it rises and then it creates the story. The playing cards are just something else happens. It rises and then you see it, just like it's exactly like individuation. Mm-hmm. Once you individuate, then you are on the path and you see the road. You have you're on it, so you recognize it. So the game for me, the game of tarot is a path, and it's once you engage with it, the fifth thing, let's say, as you call it, will clearly come on board. And people may say this is divination or this is magic, but it isn't. It is enlightenment. It is a way of bringing forth enlightenment, just like individuation does it, just like kundalini does it, or it's just, it does that because it's a story of life. Yeah,
as Israel Regarde said, nature is the magical agent. So it's introducing us to our nature. It's interesting that you mention initiation per se, because one of the topics that was written about in the Red Book for Our Time series was the fact that we don't have initiation for our young people. We don't have normal initiations for people in terms of going into adulthood or understanding things. And so I concur entirely on the initiation point, an educational point, obviously.
I want to add one thing that's occurring to me as I was listening to your several points. Really, just one central theme that I was picking up on is that tarot seems to kind of be a phenomenal study in comparative religion, comparative symbology, comparative mysticism, because there is a degree of universality in the sequence of initiation or individuation. I imagine they're kind of interchangeable in some ways. And it also makes me think of a talk I was listening to where Murray Stein was talking about Carl Jung formulating his idea of individuation, where he was saying that, in the practice of Jesuits, like you said, in Kundalini yoga and several other religious schools of thought, that he saw this process very similar to the process that he went through on his own in his Red Book period, saying that there was essentially like an unconscious process that's akin to all of the religious schools of thought. And I think the tarot is very much the same thing.
It's integral. It is integral, not only something out there, because you are a participant. And you are the one that makes it come alive.
And sometimes it's more apparent to some religions than others. I remember when the nightclub bombing took place in Paris, and all these notable people went over to Paris, and one of them was Anderson Cooper. And so he was going around interviewing older Muslim men who were in the Muslim sections of Paris. And of course, those are very poor neighborhoods of Paris for the most part. And one of the questions Anderson Cooper asked these two older Muslim men was, why do these young men, why are they attracted to go to fight for ISIS? And the two older men said, well, the young men don't have any way to prove their manhood. Okay. And I can certainly say from my own experience that, part of my pull to join the US Marines was to prove my manhood. And I don't think I consciously thought of it that way at the time, but it certainly was an initiation, certainly is an initiation. And young men need to have some sort of initiatory experience, and we don't have that right now. And unless you join the Marines or the Air Force or what have you, and do something like that, or you join the church and put on the cloth, and then you get initiated as a priest or whatever it is. But I thought that was an insightful comment that those older Muslim men made about why these young men were going off to Syria to fight.
I'd like to jump in with a question. So I'm interested in the comment about how the tarot overlays with the Kabbalah. And specifically for you, Nicholas, you had made the comment that we were talking about the Fool card. So I'd love to address it for you to answer, to kind of just riff off of how the Fool fits into the Kabbalah and what that looks like.
Okay, well, so the Fool, let me think how to answer this without being too broad. So when you look at each of the cards in the major arcana of the tarot, there are 22 cards. There are also 22 letters in the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. So when you're on the tree of life, you have these 10 spheres, and in between each of the spheres is a path that connects. Not every single path connects to every other sphere, but you know, they do all, every sphere has a pathway that connects to another sphere. So if you're looking at the tree of life here from the topmost point, the pathway that connects Kether, the crown, with Hagma, which is wisdom, is the path of Aleph, and that is the path of the Fool. So the difference between the top sphere and the bottom sphere is, the way I've described it in the past is that this top sphere is like 99% spirit and 1% matter. And the bottom sphere is like 99% matter and 1% spirit. So the Fool is this kind of free-spirited, naive, innocent, pure youth that's just about to wander off this cliff, you know, not really mindful of where he's going, but kind of full of spirit. So that's the way that I think of the Fool on the tree. And, you know, that fits very well with the idea of this top sphere being 99% spirit and 1% matter. And then it's, you know, this tree is essentially spirit descending through the various spheres. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I love the idea of the tarot connecting with other types of teachings. So I just wanted to get an example of what that was like. And that was really helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And let's introduce Judy Day to Colleen Kibert, because you both live in Santa Cruz. And Judy has an assignment to go visit Colleen's
Hi, Colleen.
workshop.
Yeah, I'm friends with Kathy Pools, and I paint with Sue Hines. And so I've known about you, and I'm excited to come to some of the workshops in February and March. I think your Tuesday night, you know, every other Tuesday night workshop. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think they're during the day, aren't they, Colleen? Didn't we schedule them for the day? I don't know. I'll double check that.
I think so. I actually put them on my calendar.
Yeah.
So they're 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So.
And I think it'd be interesting. I would say one thing. So I'm probably the only person on this call who does not study the tarot. I mean, I'm painting on the Kabbalah now, but it's my first foray into it. So I'm just like on the fourth, you know, I don't even know how to pronounce it right. Shapra. I'm painting the fourth one actually behind me, although my studio just got really dark. And it's interesting in listening to you all talk, for somebody who has probably, like you said, 1% to 99%, 1% of the experience that, you know, each of you have individually. I'm just finding it's very much just like reading the energy of life, like living in from your energy, and almost, I mean, if you can get down to vibrational level, that's great. But I mean, at least living in and kind of being in touch with and communicating with, you know, just your raw energy, which is kind of spirit and emotion, and how you're connecting to what's going on inside and outside, and where those connections come from. So yeah, from a newbie, that's kind of what I got so far.
Yeah. So Raquel, do you want to speak to this?
From my personal experience, for me, it was very hard to live throughout the tarot, because I do divination, and I also, like, I'm not psychology student, but I do make my own research in that area. But I think the minor arcana and the Fool card is that the connection between them is that the Fool can lead you to any minor arcana, to any card, because the minor arcana is an actual experience, you know. So we can talk about spirit and matter and how connect to the source, but the minor arcana tells us how we are connecting to the source, or what we have to look at to know what the source might mean to us, you know, because that idea, you know, that connection with the source, it's different for everyone, you know, and my experience with it, it's going to be different from each and everyone experience that from everyone that is here. So I think it's a very powerful tool. And for divination, I think that you have to really look at the tarot within your own life. You have to find that meaning of divination for yourself first, because when you do that, the bridge that you can create with someone else is like much more interesting and easier, you know, to create and to work.
I have a question. If
Go
I
ahead.
may. Yeah. So Raquel, I am curious for you what and this is no pressure, and obviously I just want to say, like, YouTube audience and anyone who's new in this particular class, like who's actually on YouTube being shown, that there's no, this is subjective, okay? But I'm curious as a practitioner who I do readings for myself and for other people, to another person who does that as well. Do you make a distinction when you say minor arcana? Do you make a distinction between the court and 1 through 10? Or do you consider the court card an extension, or does that matter to you? I'm curious.
The court cards for me are just a part of the minor arcana. They tell a different story, you know, because the court cards have a specific trait that is they always come in the vessel of a person, but it's something that you have to learn within yourself. So you see first outside of yourself. It's not an actual experience that you can say that, you know, cards through 1 and 10 are actual experiences, when the court cards are actually people. They are vessels of something that you have to see within yourself, that you have to accept, or you have to forgive, or you have to like even learn how to be, you know. So, but I think it's like it in the context of the minor arcana, I think that the court cards are really intertwined with the story of the minor arcana.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So, Gilda, do you have a performance somewhere of your? You said you wrote a musical about it.
I did. I think no. I took it up to doing like the first scene. I had the costumes, the libretto, everything. That was when I danced ballet all my life for many years.
Oh.
And it's a rock musical actually. And it came to me. It just came. It was the last thing I did from 25 years of dance education. So at the end, I ran out of funds, and you have to pay dancers to do, and I didn't have backing. So I will, my idea is to put it in a book, and it's the story of life, really. And I give life to the tarot. It's alive.
Yeah, it is.
And then just like, for example, Nicholas can find the whole story behind the glyphs, I can give you the whole story through Christianity.
Yeah.
Plus all the other ones, because someone mentioned, maybe it was Jordan, that it includes, at least because there are four minor arcanas, each for me in my ballet, each one is a religion, a different one. And each one represents a different something that they're very well known for. That because not different, you know, let's say the Buddhists are very compassionate. The Christians, you know, they do all this. Each one has a kernel that it has developed, helped them develop for thousands of years, that is very peculiar and particular to them. And that I know which one it is. And so there's 4 different religions. So different music. I mean, the tarot has it all. If
Yeah.
anyone is familiar with the Nutcracker,
Yes.
the Nutcracker is a similar, you can say it's a parallel story.
Mhm.
And they initiate the girl and she falls asleep, and the prince, and then she goes through all these kingdoms. The minor arcana are different kingdoms that we all have to go through, okay, to finish life. And one has to traverse all the different ones.
Yes.
The only thing that I would,
Awesome.
and this came to me, I didn't, the order which you mentioned, that was the wands, you mentioned was the wands,
Cups,
the cups, the swords, and the coins last. My order is the wands, the swords, the cups, and the coins. So those 2 for
perfectly
me.
valid.
Yeah,
Those
and
for me, that it works that way, because it was because we knew that emotion followed, but one can wonder which follow what. The emotion, if you can have emotion, but if you were never aware of it, then it can't necessarily come before, because you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I personally have no problem with that prescription either. I know that I think Stephen Heller, in his book that we've been reading from, makes it a point to talk about this as well. I know in some of his talks that he's given, he kind of goes on about this point as well, where he's just saying he could never get into the idea of the cups coming second. But you know, I think
know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I only say
Yeah.
that to point out that, you know, it doesn't seem to make a great deal of difference whether it's swords or cups in that center, in the 2 and 3 position. I kind of like either way. I think the story only varies slightly, and they're both equally as valid.
Yeah. To me, the
I'd
cups
like to chime in.
Emotions.
Yeah,
The
go
cups
ahead.
are emotions. Water.
Definitely.
Water.
Sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Jordan.
really love the route that this conversation has run, and so I'm actually going to steal it, but go backwards, because when we arrived at the last question, Samantha's question about then are the court cards separate, and I look at them as the higher octave or the higher self of each element. So they are basically the black belt of the 10 before the dawn or the initiation rite that is completed. And what's interesting there, though, one particular through line to me comes from the Empress, because each queen is an elemental emissary of the Empress energies and how they play into that part of your life. So then that feeds back down, but then going to Nicholas's 99-1 and 199, the Fool being 99% spirit and 1% matter, that 1% matter is like the docking clamp that can put on, if I look at this initiation disco ball, 56 facets, and you have to look into the whole reflective world of each of the facets and go through that initiation. Going back to then when Gilda started with the initiation, and Elizabeth Hake has such a wonderful book called Initiation that I would recommend to anyone. It's been around forever, and
I know.
it's such a wonderful, poetically written book that's not only dense, but it doesn't tire you out dense. It's really verdant. It's really rich. And but this conversation that started initiation, went through to then Judy asking about, well, what does that look like on the tree of life? And I hadn't thought about that 99% spirit, 1% matter. And there's just this touchstone in that 1% of matter in the Fool that then becomes the psyche of each of the initiatory steps through the minors.
They're together all the time, except sometimes one is more emphasized, as Nicholas said, they're reversed, because that is the expression, but the other one is always there, whether seen or not. It's always there.
Completely. There's an old quote, even if I go from wands to cups to swords to pentacles, and that's not typically how I didn't order them that way in my book, but it's not just valid. One quote that goes with it, if I run the track from wands all the way through to pentacles, is that money is simply energy, wands, that has become solid, coins,
Yep.
pentacles. And there's a process of it becoming solid. And
That's
so, and
very
for
good.
example, if I ran pentacles, cups, wands, swords, it almost comes from the wands, cups, swords, pentacles. It's a subset. Like if I want to make a sword, for example, literally go into the forge and hammer and fold metal. Well, first I have to have the earth, the iron, the pence, the pentacles.
fire.
And I have the fire, and then the cups
Wands.
for the
The-
water, and then the fire of the wands, and then air. A sword takes all four elements to create. So even a creation story of the swords or a sword
They're
could
all
run
there.
they're all
the
there.
fifth element too.
And the fifth element too.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, even then
Exactly.
the sacred sword allows no opening for evil to roost. Something I think Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, said. So, I mean, this conversation is really robustly run. I'm just loving the track that
Right.
just each question has kind of moved it to another verdant, enriching place.
So Samantha put together some slides that she wanted to talk about. Let's give Samantha a crack at showing us her slides.
Okay, great. So thank you for the handoff. I am going to screen share. Pressing screen share and share.
There it is.
Okay, and let me go get it. Screen share. I need to go to my Google Drive. Chrome. Sorry guys, hold on one second.
While you're getting this pulled up, I just want to make one follow-up comment on what Jordan was saying. You know, the idea of wands being energy that is moving towards the creation of a concrete, a material resource. I think that you see that in the storyline of the wands then come to fruition in the pentacles, because in the two of wands you see a merchant standing on a hill looking out over the ocean, seeing one of his boats home from the sea. And then by the end of the suit, it's like he's created so much with this creative energy that the person can hardly hold all the wands, but it's not yet in the form of pentacles or coins or some kind of concrete resource.
You know, what's really cool about that is that I extend it one more step, and then what does it look like if all four suits are together? And that's Hawaii, because lava magma is living earth falling into the ocean, making more land. I mean, so you have all of everything. Lava to me is one of the most magical earthly elements because it's living earth in a way. And
Fire, yeah.
Well, altogether are card 21, the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Fool is the psyche of all of them.
The Fool initiated it, and he traveled through the entire place until he arrived. He went through all the kingdoms and noticed that each kingdom has the male, the female, the sun, the court of the minor arcana are the personas that rule that, you know, and they are there in every single one.
Yes, definitely. And that's, I think, why Thoth has such a great resonance with me, is because you have not a page, you have a princess and a knight and a queen and a king. So there's a balance of the sacred feminine and sacred masculine, rather than one queen and then three masculine, or a page, which could be either. But the princess is a more direct representation of, I think, a lack of ambiguity there that gives the court literally a vagueness, because the balance then gives you something to play off of. It doesn't unduly influence you one direction or another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Samantha, are you ready?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. So this is not what I want to show. This, I'll start here. I'll just start in the original order. I tried to change it. Okay, so to me, can everyone see this well? Would anyone like me to?
If
Yeah,
you could just
fine.
enlarge it just a little, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So this is how motivation works. And this is to do with that other image I just showed, which, okay, so this is, don't pay any attention to the yin yang. I'm just acknowledging the elephant in the room, but I'm really just showing a visual of the 4 different suits. So we have the cups, the swords, the coins, and the wands. Briefly, I'll say in terms of yin and yang, yin meaning feminine energy, yang meaning masculine. So we have yin energy that receives, and that is warm, is represented by cups and coins. Why? A good way to remember that for anyone who wants to, study the tarot and incorporate it, and I say especially for divination, is that those 2 suits have to do with interacting in some way. Often, and I mean this archetypally, so often when you share a drink with someone, whether it's alcoholic or not, right? It might be at a party or amongst friends, you share drinks. And I just mentioned alcohol because a lot of people drink alcohol. But even if a stranger comes to your house or a friend comes to your house casually, you might offer them a glass of water. Or travelers, in more ancient times, you might come across another human being and say water is a scarce source. You offer them water. So it's the beginning of some type of interaction or relationship. Coins is a similar idea because it represents interchange. Okay, so when you hand someone money, even in the marketplace, let's say you're getting something, you're handing someone money, they receive the money. It can also be the beginning of some type of relationship, even if that's patron and business owner, right? But more emotionally, since we're talking about yin, money is also a symbol, right? And it also has to do with trust. Do you trust someone with money? Do you not trust someone with money? And trust is related to the emotions. So yang is a masculine symbol, and that has to do with giving, okay, as opposed to, I guess, receiving, right? So swords, and this is an easy way to remember, is thinking phallically, which is swords and wands. And each of these elements in the major arcana, then it becomes even more complex because, in the major arcana, which I'm just briefly referring to, there is the yin of yin, the yang of yang, the yin of yang, and the yang of yin. so the magician.
Say that is exactly what I was trying to explain to you guys with my diagram that I shared a couple of weeks ago too, with the fire of fire, the fire of water, the air of air, the air of earth, and so on. I mean, it's the same exact line of thought, but just through the terms yin and yang.
Yeah. So I want to give a brief example of that just to close off that part of the conversation, to move on to my other visuals. So the magician is, if we're looking at appearance and judging yin or yang, just the appearance in terms of, does this character look more male or female compared to this character? Because these are 1 and 2 in the major arcana. Let's say male, let's say that's a yang energy. Well, compared to the other male, the emperor, I think I'm getting this right, he's yin because he has the intuitive energy of this wand reaching to the heavens, but he also has a masculine energy of putting that into something on this plane. Okay, and then then the high priestess is more yin, but there's another way that she's yang, which I can't think of right now. So anyway, so you can kind of see how this idea of complexities can reach out into into the suits themselves. So I am presenting on wands, not today, but this is one of the, we had a really interesting question, which is in what order shall we as the group present the suits to the YouTube audience, right? Do we go start with the one of every suit, the 2 of every suit, the 3 of every suit, and so forth? Or do we go to the 1 through 10, or the 1 through king even of each individual suit? We did not know how to answer this, but fear not. So because I really wanted to choose wands, which I associate mostly with action, my brain, this is just how my brain works. My brain went into, well, we ought to give the YouTube audience like a way of understanding these suits in order to create something. So I recalled a video that I was exposed to on YouTube Somehow in my YouTube meanderings, I found a video that was like a motivational video. And that's where this visual that I made comes in. Okay, so the creative process, let's say this triangle, I hope I'm not getting myself in trouble here because this is where the improvisation comes in. Let's say this triangle represents an object of manifestation. Okay, just to use an example from the physical world. Let's say that it's coins, right? How do we create that? Well, when people think of how can we be motivated to create coins, which in our example, that can mean money. How do you earn money? It can mean how do you build a house? It can mean, and then some people think coins can also represent relationships. So it's anything that a human being can own, the things that belong to a human being. I can have a job, a house, a body, right? That I do something with, and my relationships. These are the most important things to humans. So people say that thought, you think of it, you take action, the action produces something that leads to you feeling a certain way about what you created. And that goes into a feedback loop of how you think about it, which is how you act on it, which is how you feel, etc. Okay. Now here's where people who are into tarot and kind of new agey folks get into trouble. So I just want to deal with this right away. A critique of new agey, I just in quotation marks, trends. For instance, The Secret, right? Probably everyone here has heard of The Secret. Well, The Secret, some people say, oh, well, that's bull. And they might say the same thing of something like tarot divination. And we got to look at this first. I want to deal with this right off the bat because it's a valid critique, right? If you get so caught up in the idea of change your mind, change your life, well, what can happen? I'm going to refer back to the other picture. Oh, Lord. No. Darn it. I don't know how to go back to the triangle that I just showed. Yay. Okay. Well, here's what can happen. We can get too stuck in, I want to wait till I feel a comfortable emotion before I take action. And then we can get just stuck in the emotion. Okay. Oh, like I'm trying to get myself to feel brave. I'm trying to get myself to feel comfortable. I'm trying to get myself to feel safe, and then we can get stuck too yin, right? Then others say you start with your thought. So, I want to have the best thought. Let's say you're an artist. I want to think of the best storyline before I start writing. I want to think of the best, what I want this pottery to look at before I start to mold the clay. These are very, very common kind of blocks that show up with humans. So if you're in the audience or you're in class being like, oh no, like I do that, fear not, because everyone does it. It's part of the human experience. But basically you can go back and forth between thought and emotion, avoiding the action. Okay, so back to that other visual. Okay, so let's go back to that critique. Change your mind, change your life. Now, for anyone who has benefited from therapy, for instance, I'm one such individual. I know that there's actually truth to change your mind, change your life. especially if you're a survivor of trauma, which I think if you're a human being, you're included in that, unless you're in denial. Sorry, but you know, the trauma of being born, the trauma of being different from your family, the trauma of not being accepted by your middle school peers. I mean, these are the types of things human beings go through. And then trauma of being a soldier, trauma of surviving violence of any kind, including sexual violence. Like these are also, I hate to say rites of passage, but they're the types of everyday pains that people can go through, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. So for those of us who that applies to, the therapeutic process, the more new agey kind of get into your crystals and your tarot cards, it can be helpful. But we first must be aware of this caveat, which is you can get stuck, analysis paralysis, okay? Avoiding action. And what we want to do with this YouTube class is we want to encourage people to take some type of action. So I don't know exactly how that's connected yet, but I'm about to figure it out as I show you my visuals. So I have to close this.
I have a question.
Yes.
Action, perhaps you can tell me how you differ being from doing.
Well, that is like the question. I'm not quite sure. I am trying to hold that while I point out. Let's see. I think my visual will help me answer your question. Thank you for asking the question. So what did I put? Retry, come on. Maybe I can't. Doodaloo. Okay, hold on, guys.
While you're looking for that, can I share an image? I don't need to share my screen. I just have it drawn here, but it's pretty much the same thing. Instead of using yin and yang and Taoist language, it's using the language of the Hebrew alphabet to convey the exact same point right here, where you've got, let's see, the yod being fire, the hay being water, the vowel being air, and the hay repeated being earth again. So that creates a twofold division. The yod and the vav are the yang, the fiery and airy active principles. And the hay 1 and the hay 2 in the name of the tetragrammaton are the yin, passive and receptive principles. So with that, you've got the wands and the swords, just like you have the wands and the swords being yang, being fiery and active. And then you've got the cups and the pentacles being yin, passive and receptive. So it's the exact same concept.
Okay, so I found my visual.
I was going to say really quickly, with both of those together, I was muted, didn't realize. With the yin and the yang, it's a wonderful expression. Then the light and the dark, the light and the shadow, the chthonic depths and the numinous heights. And then you take your piece, Nicholas, those two dovetail together so just ideally.
They're the exact same concept. I mean,
and something I hadn't even thought about is look at the gender roll call of the majors. I mean, you get masculine magician, feminine high priestess, feminine empress, masculine emperor. And then you go to 5, spirit comes to the earth. It's a masculine figure, but more of a concept. And then the lovers are 2. There's the combination. Chariot then goes male, 8. That then, well, why don't we put strength there? Female, 9 hermit, male, wheel, concept. And then you go through the rest. And it's interesting. I had never thought really about the gender sequencing of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. But even Samantha, when you put up the yin and the yang and the magician and the high priestess, I mean, in one sense, the magician could be the sperm and the high priestess the egg, or magician is inception to the high priestess conception. So I would like that yin and yang that you've brought in that plays through the sacred masculine in material form in the minor arcana.
I also just want to say I've alluded to this point when I gave my presentation on the Tree of Life several months ago, but the reason why I suggest that the suits should go in this order is because the suits are based on this concept here, and they stack in a fourfold manner to where, you know, in the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, people talk about the 4 worlds, which is essentially just 4 trees of life stacked one on top of the other to make 40 different spheres instead of 10 in one world. Think of it like 4 different dimensions stacked on top of each other or something like that. And the top one is the fiery region of Yod. The second one is the watery region of the Hay. The third one is the airy region of the Vav.
So
And the final one is the Hay, the earth. But
And then that's like spiritual gravity, you know, then what the heavies go to the bottom.
I have to be assertive and get into your folks. So thank you for that commentary, because everything that everyone's saying right now is integrating into an image that I'm going to show you, which is very childlike, simple. Anyone could do it, you know, non-intimidating, but just a visual way of integrating all the words that were just said by each, you know, respective party. So I appreciate that. When you read tarot, here's the thing, guys, it can go in any direction, right? So how can we use our creative process? How can we have agency, right? Instead of just being passive. This is the question. So now I have to find the other image. I think I'm gonna do it. My drive. Okay, my drive. Go back. 1 second. Oh, good. Okay, I think it'll work now. Open with. Now I just want to minimize this. Does anyone know what I'm doing?
No.
Okay.
You haven't shared
Let me
your
pull a
screen
card
yet.
and I'll tell you.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm not sharing the screen.
No.
Did I
you-
show
yeah.
you? Did I didn't show you anything yet of
Not
this?
yet.
No, you
No.
did before, but then
Yeah,
Nick
not in this
switched
version.
off, so Nick was
What's the last one you saw?
Before,
the last one you
I think
showed.
Yeah, the
it was
triangle.
critique.
The triangle, yeah.
Oh, it was critique. Okay, good. Oh, thank you guys for telling me that. Jeez Louise. That would have changed everything. Okay, so this is the image. So if we look, when we read the, come on. Ay, Dios mío. Okay, okay, you can see this, yes?
Yes.
Tarot. So by this simple diagram, this is cups, this is swords, this is wands with the branches. If you guys are wondering what those sticky things are, the wands in the Rider-Waite system are living wands. So they have, meaning they have plant growth on them. So it's as if someone fashioned a wand, let's say from a branch or something like that. And then we have, this represents coins. So when we read tarot, it's not as if we're reading all from the cups or all from the swords or all from the wands or all from the coins. We read them and there's the element of the random. So it's telling a story where wands might, there's a wand card first and then a cup card and then a sword, etc. Okay, so that's just the point I'm trying to prove of why order is complicated. Now that doesn't mean we can't have some type of order, because for the purposes of teaching, our brain likes that. Our brain likes order for those purposes. I'm just plugging in my computer, guys, before I find my next visual. So, so how can we be motivated from something, from, let's say, coming away from a tarot reading? Well, I'll tell you how in the next slide I'm going to find. Is it going to work here? Nope. Is it going to work here? My drive. I'm going to go back to my email. Oh, hold on, guys. I might just put it up to the camera. Okay. The good news is, I'm going to stop my share while I say this and just show it on the camera. The good news is we can actually begin at any point in the motivation triangle to create manifestation, to get those coins, which might mean going and get that paper, that money, shmoney. It might mean a sculptor who wants to sculpt, or an actor who wants to manifest a role and be in a play, or write, a writer who wants to tell a story, or even if it's something more emotional, like I want to be integrated as an individual So I'm going to go to, let me manifest a therapist or a community or a relationship, okay? The good news is we can begin at any point. So if we go back to motivation triangle, we can start from emotion and then go to that, how we feel about something affects how we think about it, which leads us to take action. We can start from thought. We're going to have an idea of something and then try it. And then we're going to feel a certain way about that. Or we're going to have an idea and the idea comes with a feeling. And then we get excited. That's a great idea. I want to tell that story. So then I take action to write the story. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, folks, is that you can enter at any point in the triangle and manifest. Okay. So I have one more visual that I have to find. Shucks. Okay. I might just put it up to the camera. JPEG, open sharing settings. No, I don't want to do that. Stop sharing. Okay. So the next point that I want to make, 1 second, is that, oh, geez, hold on.
Is anybody here familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy or the concept of reciprocal determinism?
Talk about that, please.
I just wanted to point out that there's a big similarity between the diagram that you've worked up and that of CBT and reciprocal determinism. They're both create a triad to function in, where one is feelings, behavior, and thoughts. And then reciprocal determinism is personal factors, environment, and behavior, which is, just a different mapping of the same concept. I think it's cool that that's an idea that many people have picked up on and just chosen different language for.
And with that too, so that said, I really resonate with Gilda's question of how to distinguish action from being, or even if they need to be distinguished. As a thought too, Samantha, as you're going through this, I'd love your perspective as to distinguishing action from being.
Being from doing.
Yeah,
This is also so much like Jung's types, though, when
Right.
we're talking about getting stuck in thinking or getting stuck in feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We're running on patterns. You're
Right.
not really in charge of you think you're doing. Your thoughts and action, emotions, and everything is patterned. You have automatic patterns running you. So
And that's also meditative, where train until the body remembers, and mind forgets and the body remembers, and you're in a different place.
there's no evolution when one runs on continuous patterns. There's no evolving.
It's like static, you mean?
Mhm.
So
I don't divulge too much information about it, but Colleen, I definitely plan on talking about the idea of type as it relates to these suits when I do my presentation on swords. But I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's, the idea that I want to talk about is rationality, and not necessarily as it relates to concrete logos rationality, but rationality like ratios, like proportionality, like not leaning too heavily on your dominant function. Anyways.
So, folks, I just have 2 more visuals, and everyone's being great. But more to me that it's taken me so long because I didn't practice this before. So I'm just let's streamline until we get through these 2, and then I think it'll make
great. You're doing great.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Your enthusiasm is admirable. I will say that.
Okay,
Well, I admire that you're thinking about this.
Yeah. Keep
And
going.
on the fly too. Keep going.
So here we go. Which one do I show first? Well, I'll show this. Decision made, right? Yep. Okay, good. Okay. So let's make this even bigger for y'all, which means you all. Is anyone's confused? You all. That's not even considered quote unquote proper English,
but it.
In Texas, it actually has an apostrophe.
I know that's what I mean. I was just trying to
Because y'all is a word there. I mean, it
So-
is.
show the YouTube audience that practice is what determines the rule. Something that becomes common practice becomes the rule. So just remember that, as we're talking about tarot, there are no rules, but there is structure. Structure is helpful. So anyway, so in this diagram, which I don't think I can get any bigger, enter full screen. Yes, I can. Okay, well, that didn't help.
Hit Command plus or Control plus. It should
Command
automatically zoom.
Plus.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so again, I scribbled this right before class, but and you can see this little cross here. I'll put it in the center. You guys see that? It's tiny, but you see it dancing?
Yes,
Oh no. Okay.
she's talking about her cursor.
See this?
Oh.
It's on the cups. See?
Mhm.
Now it's on the swords. Someone tell me if you can't see it, because I want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, we can see it.
We can see it.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is similar to this is a visual that I do not explain what it means yet, but let's translate each suit to a part of the motivational triangle at this time, okay? So let's say you start with the emotions. Well, that would be represented by cups. It can also represent in tarot displays of emotion. So the Two of Cups, for instance, some people consider that meaning a marriage, and that's only one interpretation of the Two of Cups. But there is two individuals are sharing cups, or one is lifting it up as if to share. They're in the process of potentially exchanging cups. So that is why the Two of Cups can be interpreted as a marriage. For instance, it can be interpreted as other things as well. That's just a popular interpretation. Then we have the swords. The swords represent mental realms, okay? So one way we can think of the swords is as making a decision, okay? And there's different pictures that go with the swords, from 1 through the highest court card. So there's, I don't have any visuals of the cards in front of me right now, but basically, I think I've made my point. So in the Ace of Swords, for instance, the hand coming from the heavens has the single sword. So in a reading, that could mean you've made a decision, or you need to make a decision, or the choice is yours, something like that. Wands represent action. Trying to think of an example. In the Five of Wands, we see several youths kind of play fighting. They're not really fighting as in swords, but you could think of that as like they're playing a sport. So it's some type of hashing out, but not necessarily a violent hashing out is what that sword can represent. So that's the Five of Wands I just made reference to. Then the coins represent the product. So if you're reading for someone or for yourself, it could represent that which you would like to manifest. It could represent something going on with your physical body, your relationships, or any like property you own, for instance. Now, so again, we go to that creative process. Where do you start? Well, the answer, you can start anywhere here. Anyway is an entry. Okay. And then remember that, so just remember that. And then I want to conclude this with one more visual, which is hopefully this one. Yay! Nope. So this is a Wheel of Fortune moment, guys, which represents the random of, you can have a plan, but then there's always some element of the random, seemingly random, put in there. So I will try to find it, and if I cannot, I will just read off my note that I made.
Well, I'll take the minors for 200, please.
Okay, so now I'm putting this in my phone notes, right? Yep, and then I'm saving it. Now I'm gonna go on here to my notes here. Hopefully it will be there, but you have to exit and go back. Oh, Lord. Good Lord Almighty. Okay, one more try, Sammy. Nope.
I'm getting bored. So I'm going to stop this activity because I'm getting bored and it's taking too long and I don't want to lose you guys. So
Tell me what you want me to get, because I really like what you're doing.
well, what I want you to get is this. Thank you for the question. What I want you to get is, this is where intuition and decision-making come in.
Okay.
So if you're someone who is reading the tarot in front of you, your intuition is a part of that. So anything, when I'm reading for someone, my cups, meaning the emotion I came with that day, the general mood I might be in, am I feeling excited and optimistic about life as a reader? Or am I feeling crappy because someone broke up with me, or I feel rejected and it's re-triggering my abandonment issues and so on and so forth? You know what I mean? We all have moods. Then what did I do? Like, am I feeling, well, that's pretty much everything what I just said. So your mood affects it, but also your intuition. So your intuition is like, I guess I would say, I have to make eye contact with you guys or I'll go off forever, is to do with your subconscious mind, your mindset. So if I have a relationship with that particular symbol, let's say the person who would like a reading is asking about something I don't have experience with, well, I might enter the reading in a different way. I hope that makes sense in an abstract way. I haven't fully formed that idea, so maybe we'll wait till next week. So I think that's the point I wanted to make, is just the intuition. The intuitive mind is the part that interprets the symbols. Okay, so for instance, the 3 of coins, or the number 3 in general, I have an association with family, right? Because the siblings closest in age to me is like the 3 girls, and then there's a boy, or man and woman get together and make a third. So that's 3. But other people might, when they see the number 3, that might mean nothing to them, right? So I just wanted to give an example of how these symbols are both fixed, but then also random, colored by your life experience. Yeah. So in conclusion, Colleen, I hope that answered your question, but I think I'll say one more thing, Colleen, and then someone will have to grab the mic from me, because I will want to continue to talk, because that is my personality, but I have to stop and stick the landing. So, oh, I remember. So regardless of what the cards tell you, you always have free will. So I find that as a reading for myself, or reading from someone else, or excuse me, for someone else, is to try to have humility to where I neither think that I can totally undo them. Like, what if I give them the wrong information and then they make a wrong decision, or they choose the wrong life partner or something? Well, I'm making myself too responsible. They have their own free will, and their intuition and subconscious mind is part of that reading. It's not just mine.
Right, and even if it resonates at that moment in the divination,
yes,
everything can be changed from that moment. That's the
right.
beauty. That's the beauty of the magician.
So that is why, and I'm gonna, that's my ending note. That is the beauty of the magician, and I wanted to point out. So I emailed. Oh Lord, please let me have my. Hold on, one guys. Hold on, magician or Skip or anyone can show an image of the magician card. That would be helpful. If anyone, the first person who has easy access to the magician card can get a free reading from me.
Oh no!
I only have Mysterium here, and
Yes,
everyone's going to go, "What's that?"
Okay, hold on. Then I will find it.
No,
but
no, you don't have to find it. I will bring it up here in just a
okay,
moment.
thank God. Well, that
Skip
means
gets a free reading.
I'm highly motivated. I'm highly motivated to get that free reading. So
yes,
allow me to.
Well, you know that they'll be respecting your intuition, how intuition comes to play in the reading, which I really think is wonderful that you're bringing this up, Samantha.
Thank you, Colleen. That means a lot to me.
So here's the magician. Whoops.
Yes. So can you make it small? Okay. Make it a little smaller so we can see the word magician. If you would, please, Skip.
Okay.
That's perfect. Perfect visual. So you'll notice that, okay, so we're all the Fool, right? But the Fool also has the number 0, which if you study tarot, and it's common, you know, I think it's safe to say it's understood collectively in this group that the Fool is a character that moves throughout all the numbers. By having the number in quotation marks 0, it's the existing both within and outside or beyond the numbers in the card. So I mention this because someone told me once, someone I admire very much and value their opinion, sent me an email. I'm talking about Skip, okay, everybody, big reveal. I forget what we were emailing. Well, I remember. So we've had a lot of intense discussions in class, and it gets emotional. And that's an example of what tarot can do, even when we're by ourselves, is it by calling upon these subconscious images, these things come up to the level of our consciousness, and we're made aware of things that can make us feel good or excited, or can also press on our individual lowercase t or capital T traumas of like, oh, that reminds me of when I was bullied. That reminds me of when I encountered racism. That reminds me of someone in my family who I have an issue with, or whatever. So that's that Wheel of Fortune aspect of we're still human, and random things happen that are meaningful to us. So I just want to point out that the magician, and this is who we're called to be. What Skip told me is he said, I was the magician, right? About some particular issue that came up, and the issue isn't important at this time, but which means I have agency. I have all the tools. So each tool appears, and the magician is an example, the embodiment of someone who takes up the creative process as their own. Okay, so it's magical to be a writer, to be a dancer, to be a therapist, to do anything in this world and commit to it is really an act of magic. So I just wanted to point out that the magician has emotions, thoughts and beliefs and decisions to make, actions they can take, and they have, they still have to eat, right? So they still have to make money and they still have to interact in the world of the marketplace, So that's what I wanted to point out, that I don't know how to finish this. So I'm just going to
Okay, let me go to something that I really wanted Gilda to hear, because I'm sure she knows it, but she wants to know that we know it. And so there's a comment here on YouTube where Justin says, the libretto to the Nutcracker is adapted from E.T.A. Hoffman's story, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. Hoffman, as you know, was pretty important to early psychoanalysis. And then there was another comment.
He engaged the we space and therefore read whatever arose. And that is a form of divination. Intuition, yes. Intuition is simply one more side to it, but it is not the leading one. There's the we space, there's intuition, and possibilities and purpose. So the space in between takes it and reveals. And Hoffman was very good at letting it out, and then there would be a response from the tree, or it would animate and engage with him.
Right.
It's very much like automatic writing of the French surrealists in a way, but automatic divination, allowing
and the Nutcracker is still alive. And
truly.
So
still alive
anything
in us.
Exactly.
Right.
Anything that has universal, that is the universal definition of life.
Yeah.
It stands the test of time.
Right. And so, I don't know, I'm thinking of a children's song, but I know when I'm doing a divination, sometimes I get caught, so I can't spit out something. But the images of the divination and their location on the layout tell us a story, and I spit out a story. And so these images come into my psyche, they mix with whatever I know about the tarot, for good or better or for worse. And so it goes round and round and round, and then it comes out. And I think that's sort of what Samantha's saying, and you too, Gilda. And so the point is that we all go through this. We're all interpreting our world all the time. Okay, we're all looking at our world, and at some level thinking, okay, what does this have to do with my life, type thing. And that makes us the bridge, where that makes us the fifth element.
Can I say or ask?
Go ahead.
So yeah, the fifth, you were talking about the fifth suit.
Yes.
And that's what I felt like Samantha was saying when she talked about the intuition and decision making. So that finally clicked for me. But also the Nutcracker. I just watched a very vivid version of that recently that was made some time ago, and I still didn't get it. I still thought it was like kind of scary and beautiful, and I would like to know where I might go just to find interpretations on that, because its meaning escaped me.
Well,
Do you play with the tarot? Are you a tarot practitioner?
Yes. Not a professional. I love my tarot cards.
So you're constantly creating meaning, and usually the question is as good as the answer is as good as the question. And as you evolve, then things are revealed to you. That's how you evolve. Otherwise, you remain.
So I have to keep watching the Nutcracker.
And engage and see what arises. And then, something arises.
It's funny. It's funny even with the title too. I mean, sometimes you have to watch it in a way to where then you actually crack the nut. I mean, it's somewhat of a geode, like a real rough stone in a way that it has one line, but then there'll be a point when you just kind of click and it splits open like a geode, and it's a whole nother realm of a story.
She travels. It's like traveling through dreams. She dreams. Remember, she goes to sleep, so she dreams. A whole reality, and she dreams many countries. She goes to different countries.
Samantha wants to say something. She's bursting out. Go.
Bursting.
Tell me, I have an answer. Well, I said, and Gilda, I hope I don't imagine that you'll take offense or anything about what I'm going to say. But, I don't know if anyone heard me, but I said it's about sex, because a lot of things actually are, in my opinion. However, that's only one way to look at it. So I'm just going to address that though first.
It seemed that way to me.
You thought so too, right?
Yeah, but I didn't understand that.
I think it's about awakening. I mean, I think if you could interpret it but you could also say sex is a metaphor for individuation, as well. It's when you become an adult in some way, you experience adult feelings, that basically she goes, and there's also fear related to anything we desire because it's unknown. So it could represent, the Mouse King could represent something she's disgusted by, but also intrigued by and attracted to. And then she ends up, saving the day or going back to her real life. However, the other acknowledge, she's getting mad. Gilda, I'm not a threat to Tammy. She has an attachment to you.
I've danced the Nutcracker many, many times in many different roles.
Yes.
So as a participant,
yes,
something else happens. So
well,
when there's only an observer and the observer never has a tantric relationship with what's happening, then there's always another side missing. So there is a relationship there that when you encounter it, something happens.
And so that's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you, Gilda. That's a good point, because you're also talking about the observer. Because in science, for instance, and then I promise to come back, but in science, for instance, people who say, I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual in any way, I think after you're dead, you're dead. And I respect all beliefs, but I'm just saying that's one way of thinking of things completely atheistically, if you will, or non-spiritually. And then the other way, my point is that anytime someone's even looking at a scientific experiment, there's the observer. And most of the time, scientists don't include themselves as part of their calculation. So this is where things like tarot come in that are participatory. So what I'm trying to say is it can be about, like when I said it's about sexual awakening, but it's also about the creative process, right? About a girl's, let's say a fool, because she can be male, female, anything in between, is that she's manifesting something. It could be a metaphor for the power of the mind it gives us wings, it lets us travel, it lets us encounter people and then defeat the things that are harmful, and then we come back though, and we do have to wake up from the dream at some point. So it's real in the sense that tarot is real, like you can read for someone and have these psychic experiences, but it's also practical because you go away from the reading and you live your life and make your decisions away from the reading. And that takes courage. It doesn't always feel good to do that. Sometimes we don't feel in the mood to audition or ask the person out or whatever, but that's where bravery comes in.
And that's why I have to watch these things like 3 or 4 times. Because there's so much information that comes out that I didn't expect, like the Nutcracker or a science experiment. So for this, if this is 3 hours long or 4 hours long, I'll be spending like 12 hours this week on it. Through and making notes.
Oh, you know what would be helpful? Let's say this is an assignment, okay? An assignment for Samantha, for example. Make a tarot deck out of the Nutcracker.
Oh man!
And then when you do that, then you will find out exactly what who's doing what, where, how, and where they do it, and what happens in every step of the way.
Yeah.
Something will arise.
Yep, that's very, very good point, Gilda, and that's
That's
why
your
it's why there's
assignment,
so many
Not mine.
tarot decks,
And that story aligns so much more synchronistically than almost any other story. I mean, it's like chicken and the egg, in a way. It's both.
It's a tarot and dance form called Nutcracker.
Right. And we're actually doing the world a great service because we're suggesting to people that they ought to go back to the theater or to novels or whatever and see how all these things plug in. I mean, you can definitely plug in The Tale of Two Cities, for example, without much trouble at all. And there's a Game of Thrones tarot.
You could even take I love the 2 books by architects that I like the most are Harold and the Purple Crayon and the Phantom Tollbooth. Architects wrote
I love that's the tarot deck?
No, the Phantom Tollbooth, the story by Norton Juster. He was an architect. And then I can't remember the author of the Harold and the Purple Crayon, but it's one of my favorite stories because it's so much deceptive simplicity. But the structure
Harold
of it
and the
is
Purple
so Harold and the Purple Crayon. It's typically a children's book, but it's not a children's book.
No,
I mean,
it's like fairy tales. All those
it's a
fairy
total
tales
fairy tale. Yeah,
the Phantom Tollbooth is
Jungians are so famous for unraveling.
Right.
So I wanted to share. See, like this is a book. This is an amazing book. Okay, it's called. Right. Have you read it?
No.
What was the title? The Old Fool and
the Old Fool and the Corruption of Myth.
Could you hold it up to the screen one more time, please?
I try, but
no, we're seeing it.
You can
The Old Fool and the Corruption of Myth by whom?
He's a Swiss. Right.
Adolf Guggenheim.
Right. So
Craig. Okay.
He takes it. It's not anything it's down to earth and tells you how exactly these a lot of these for example, let's say Trump now trying to make he's going to make a patriot a kind of democratic patriotism. There's always a balance on the other side that needs to be made in society, and how they keep doing this, and but when they become too dominant, then because there's always play.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And that is why I don't know what the segue is. I just want
tantric, it's
But-
kind of like tantric.
Cool. So, but what I wanted to say is that, Tammy, I think it's also important, I mean, you already know this, I'm just saying it, is that fun is so important. It's important and it's not important. That's why I think of tarot as a sacred game. You know, it's a game and it's important, and it's also a game. So it's
a game.
It just involving yourself in what you read is so important. Like first thought, right thought. What does this card bring up for you? Then that can be its meaning. So the same thing with the Nutcracker, because you know there's this meaning we're talking about in class. We're looking at it in a tarological way. Simultaneously, it's fun. It's fun to watch the Nutcracker. So if on the third time you're watching the Nutcracker, you're like, geez, okay, I need a break. That's okay. You might need to go for a walk, get something to eat.
I can watch it with like my rum and Coke or something.
I'm not telling you what to watch it with, because I'm not a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you know.
Well, live, it would be live, because when if you watch it online, necessarily the camera has to be steady, otherwise it's going to miss what happens on that corner or what happened over there. You know, these are all little cues that go on inside a frame. So when it takes a very special eye. I went to film school, by the way, that to be able to NYU, to be able to film dance.
Right.
Well, in a post-vaccination world, I look forward to going back to the theater.
You can dance too, Tammy. You can dance while you watch the Nutcracker.
So Gilda, tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit. I'm
About
sorry,
what?
did I interrupt something? Gilda, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about what it feels like, what the experience of dancing any of the roles of the Nutcracker is like, and how you get taken into the...
Right. I'll just say the experience of dancing, period. Especially when it is ballet is a dance form that is very refined and comprehensive, because everything is done forwards, backwards, right, and left. So your brain goes and your legs and everything is taken to its maximum, to the edge. I mean, anything else and you die, you break your bone. So in that way, it's like you encompass space with your body. You fly and you do all sorts of different things, but you cannot dance with your head. You can't go there intellectually and be heady and dance. It's impossible, because there's everything is going on at the same time. There's music. You're moving in with perfection, because there's in ballet at least. The minute you hit no matter what, as you move, everything is synchronized. And that's why you can hold balance. If it's not synchronized, you fall. So that's why it takes so many years. So I read in the Rosicrucians, there were like 4 professions or 5, priesthood being one of them. And one of the other professions, to my great surprise and validation, was dance. Because you are at one with presence. You can't be anywhere else. And additionally, you're in your body, you're embodied, and you are using your body, where a lot of most other ones are not embodied. They're not using their body. Unless you're doing yoga, I have to say, yoga will use their body, and kundalini, that's why they're so powerful, because they don't ignore the body. Let's say the earth, the coins, which is the manifestation of form. So that's why. So it matters not which one. So once you are embodied in experiencing the world, one thing is the map and another thing is you in the world, right? Your experience of the world. So that is the difference. The ones that are watching are perhaps experiencing it in a virtual way, but their body is not in it. They're not embodied unless they're able to. You're a meditator and you can be nothing opened, and therefore whatever is happening is embodied.
Yeah, it's like watching a war movie instead of going and being in a battle.
Exactly.
Gilda, I'm really glad you brought that up to that level, because frankly, one of the first questions a shaman will ask somebody when they have psychic distress is, when did you stop dancing? And you just see them go, how did you know? I mean, and then just go dance and come back, and they never come back because they go dance again and they start over. But it's like people
you can't be out there. You can't be
Right.
mechanizing. You can't be
Right.
thinking, because you will lose value. You have to be at one with all of it at that
Right.
moment, and sequentially. That's action. Samantha likes action. That's action in perfect synchronicity.
Okay, so we need to come to some sort of conclusion on this. We're approaching the magical 10 o'clock hour, and I don't know about the rest of you, but current events have me enervated at the moment. and so
the new patriots.
Yeah. So Jordan, why don't you give us a wrap up on the topic of the night, which is the introduction to the major or to the minor arcana, and then we'll allow everybody to comment if they want. But
well, I thank you. To me, the fool steps in through the queen and the queens, from the empress into the higher court, and they drop down into the ace through the 10. And this is, in a sense, the spirit and the soul coming to the world, and in a very matter of fact, literally way, so that when we go through these suits, through these elements, and I like from Gilda's example, through the dance of the elements, as we dance our way through initiatory rites of passage, card to card to card, we learn something and have an opportunity to learn something about ourselves and about how we relate and how we evolve the relations and the connections that we make with the minor arcana. Would be my kind of almost Jungian bent architect's example of the minor arcana. Thoughts, extensions, adds, subtracts.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be going back on stuff that we've already covered, but I would just like to add to what Gilda was saying about, I have my own experience of that with playing improvisational music. And,
Same. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like it truly is the same thing, and well, not always, but in the sense that there are times
it's very close. Yes,
it's very close, and there are also times where you're just kind of in perfect union with everything that's happening, and it's only in reflection that you realize how perfect it was, and if you even stop in that moment to think, wow, this is going so perfectly, you're pulled out of it.
Exactly. You understand? Yes.
That
Except in dance, the body is the instrument.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
And it works that way with martial arts and fighting as well.
Martial arts is,
I mean, when you get into your adrenaline body will break if you think too much. I mean, you literally have to let the the mind forgets, the body remembers, and you almost know what's happening before it happens, and you're literally like kelp, in the ocean, just kind of, and
you're tuned.
Right, and then it's like catching fire. You can't. But it's that same. I love the dance metaphor. I just really. I haven't looked at the tarot from that perspective, and it just
I made
fits.
I made it come alive.
You
It's
did.
alive.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh
You
yes,
did.
There you go.
I did.
I've tried to.
I just haven't. I just at some point in time I ran out of money, so you haven't seen it.
I
But
tried to express
it has to be performed. But it is. I created it to
You
be.
can-
It's alive.
Maybe we do a Kickstarter from this group
Yeah.
and the YouTube audience
There you
to
go.
make a tarot. I like
Get
that.
some-
I mean,
yeah.
That
that's
was
got
the
some
last,
that's got some energy we can make solid. Make
And
some
this
money
is
to get your
a
production
perfect
done.
segue to, as you were saying about martial arts. I wanted the reason why I mentioned to bring the Fool. What do we take away from the Fools? Because in the Golden Dawn of Aleister Crowley's deck, the Fool, there is a gold. And you're the artist, right? You painted the gold sun in different spots in your picture in the sacrum. The sacrum is holy, it's been holy in many places. And there is a big round sun. And we see all these others, and the sun is up here, and it's outside of ourselves. And the sun is there. That is the kundalini, right? Lives there. And kundalini is the center of our force. Martial artists know this. So you were saying about martial artists, they will imitate animals, those sorts of things, but they remain seated in the sacrum because that is their force. If the minute they're out of there, they're off balance and they can be in danger.
Well, what's interesting is Ku, CHU, the first kanji in a Japanese meditation system I utilize, originates in, it seats in the sacrum.
Yeah.
But then
That's
nin,
the power.
the ninth kanji is nin, and it's represented by this, and you focus on the moon through your hands, but its spot is not in the sacrum, it's the hara, which is 2 acuinches below your navel, and it's the other psyche, and it's as if the placenta came through your belly button, but then your origin of source is just right below that. So above the genitals, below the
yes, that's
belly
right.
button.
They call that the secret, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
how
the
we're
hara or
born.
the one
That's
point,
how we
right.
come into the world, and that is
Right.
another. That's the portal of source, and then we traverse all the chakras to the top,
Right.
and that's the journey. That's
Right.
the journey of the tarot. That's the journey of this. It's the same journey,
Oh, it is.
but you
It
can
is.
also exit. Once you've made it, you reflect from your sacrum. You can reflect up here, but you are embodied. People
Right.
who go out there into in the white, everything's white. What happens when you're in white? You don't see anything.
Right.
Everything's white. You need the shadow. Shadow is where the gold is, because when you see something in the shadow, the light is showing it to you. But
Right.
if it's all white, what are you going to see in white? But darkness.
Yes. Very
So
much
we've
so.
been talking about creativity and creating all evening, and so I want to close with this. And next week we will have Samantha, who will focus us on the wands, and we'll talk mainly about wands of different kinds. I might pull out a deck or two to show different wands, but we'll see. But the last few days I've been very taken by Amanda Gorman, and what Gilda is talking about is enacting things, right? And so on the Wisdom Path on February the 7th, we have Jorge Ferrer, Dr. Ferrer, who is the author of a book called Participation in the Mystery. And he will be talking to us about that. But one of the big elements of that is enactment. And Amanda Gorman talked about enactment in her inaugural poem the other day, whether we have the courage to be it. She was, the end of the poem was, we see it, do we have the courage to be it? so I listened to a bunch of Amanda Gorman things this week, and I want to urge you to treat yourself to put into YouTube Amanda Gorman, Gorman, Amanda Gorman, American Academy. And she describes the story of how she wrote a poem called The Believer's Hymn for the Republic. And so I urge you to watch that 10-minute video. And then she actually recited this poem in front of the Boston Pops on July the 4th, 2019, I believe. She was invited to present it on July 4th in front of the Boston Pops. It's called The Believer's Hymn for the Republic. And I think it's a believer's hymn for humanity, actually. And so I urge you to listen to that. It's very moving. It has me in puddles every time I listen to it. So it must have something cool.
Well, did anyone else notice that she dressed as a diet empress? There were the 4 gold symbols in her hair. One of them was a star. I couldn't tell what the other were. But that yellow, who else has ever worn that golden tarot yellow to a political event? It was so wonderful. And just even her hair holder was like a red crescent, the way it disappeared behind her hair. So it's almost like the priestess and the empress. And watching her, I felt like I was watching a tarot card I had never seen before. Yeah. Except, and it was just beautiful. And it was just beautiful.
Well, she's everywhere on YouTube. There are many videos of her, and I urge you to take a look. I'm going to urge her to speak to us on the wisdom path, but she may be too big for that right now. I don't know. I'm not CBS, so I can't.
Well, I love the way she kind of made Anderson Cooper a little speechless. I mean, he was taken, and everybody. It's hard to make him speechless, and she has such a not just mature but elegant sense about her, and her sensibility, and it's still soft and engaging. So it's as if she got to wise old age, except she's 22. And so I kind of feel
she's
like
an old soul, that's for sure.
Yeah, I right in front of Bernie to get that meme gone. I kept thinking, well, Maya Angelou must be sitting here somewhere, just going, "Go, girl!"
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
So it's The Believer's Hymn for the Republic is the name of the poem, and I urge you to first of all put in Amanda Gorman and Scientific American or American Academy. American Academy. And that's where she described the story of how she wrote that poem, and then she actually performed it before the Boston Pops, and it's really, really moving on the 4th of July. Anyway, thank you, everyone. I think we're going to call this quits tonight. Are there any other urgent points that we want to make tonight? We're going to be talking about the minor arcana for this next 4 or 5 months, so we don't.
Well, I will say that we certainly did not minimize the minors. I think tonight was when I watched the question go from Gilda to was it Judy Day, who was here before, to Nick, and then to Samantha. Just the way that moved, there was just such a life of big picture pieces that just came right together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And yeah, that was just a really beautiful experience.
Right. So next week, Samantha is going to lead the parade and talk about the wands. And
we want to know Samantha's horoscope. She's got to be either a fire or an air sign or something.
I'm actually a Taurus.
A Taurus. I said, oh my God, like I'm a Taurus.
What's your moon?
I think my moon is Sagittarius.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be.
And your animal in the Chinese?
I think it's is it the dog or the monkey? What do animals?
You resemble more a monkey to me, but I'm a monkey myself. But monkey would be 1980 or 1992. Or when were you born?
Oh, okay. I was born in 85.
No, so that's something else. So that would be 80 monkey, 85, 81 rooster, 82 dog, 83 pig, 80. You're a tiger.
Oh, I'm a tiger?
Or no. You're the bull.
Which
there
goes
you go.
with Taurus.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm a Taurus. Yeah, I don't.
We knew that.
The best. Like that other stuff I'm
Yeah.
learning. I'm glad you're asking because it's.
But you probably have Gemini. You know, Taurus is close to Gemini and all that because Taurus, unless you have Gemini, Sagittarius will do it too. I'm a Sagittarius. You wouldn't be, you know,
Right.
You'd be
kinetic. Yeah, I'm not too I'm not too like that. I love your idea, by the way, for the Nutcracker, and I messaged you personally. I don't know if you got it, but I'm glad that to be in your orbit.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
Blake says
Blake-
he thinks the ox is the 1985.
yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I-
Okay.
Well, she's double bull. Wow.
I'm very
Means the Queen of Swords, no bull.
as a very, very. Sometimes people think I have it more together than I do, so I think I come off as very regimented. Maybe less so in this class because I'm more myself, but I'm only that way to counteract my natural. I'm naturally more like that. So
I always just hope you have a high ceiling because you fly around and I don't want you banging your head on a low ceiling.
I would love to dance the Nutcracker. Oh my gosh, I would love to do that. I did ballet, but not consistently.
Wouldn't that be something interesting? Certainly a project.
Yeah.
Since you like to make little sequences,
Yeah.
and just watch it and write down, make your drawings or whatever. See if you can make a tarot by following. You see, in dance, it's exactly like the tarot. There's groups. The groups are like the minor arcana.
Mm-hmm.
Groups, solos, and queens and queens. It's the same, except there's one element I haven't mentioned, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. If I tell you, I'll be giving away that which took my entire life to do, but I'll give it to you because maybe I'll die tomorrow.
Nope.
So
don't do that.
That is, but the willies. The willies, yes, in my ballet, they are the willies. The willies are always there. And who are the three willies? In the universe, the universe, one is man, right? The other one is the bull, the lion, and what's the other one? And the eagle. So the willies are the three eagle, the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the initiate, which is the fool that goes through the whole thing, is man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how I made it come alive. Those four, which is the world, and it's also the fool, they go all the way through the entire thing till the end. And what happens at the end? You become a number. They all, and in my ballet, they all become a number. They're no longer in form. You're all a number.
Like a concept, right?
No, in real life, in real dance. They all look alike, and they all have the number here.
The number,
so they all
right.
dance with the number here.
Oh, nice.
So there's no separation anymore.
Right.
You already went through all the kingdoms. You already went through all the, and of course, that there's the Christian thing, whether you are on earth in limbo or in heaven or whatever. but three scenes, and bing, 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 and it's the tarot come alive in ways that you've never seen it before, because nobody would ever be able to do that unless they understood, unless they had the key of unlocking the tarot.
I really like that
embodied.
example. Yeah, I really like that example, because one of my jokes that actually is serious as well too is, once you finish up on the King of Swords and you close the deck, now you're playing with a full deck. So, you know, and it's part joke. Yeah, but it's an initiation. You can open and close at will then.
It's an initiation of life. It's life.
Right.
I call it Gala life. And I created this other game. I said the game of life. It is life. And there's a few more. You will love it. If I wish I could write the book, and then you can just read it, and there will be the way you would understand it perfectly. You don't need to be any religion. You would understand perfectly.
Gilda, I think you can write the book.
Oh, yeah, one of these days.
Yeah, you can write the book. And also the dance will be so beautiful that sometimes people don't need to understand because they can be moved by the beauty and drawn.
Oh, yeah. But at the time they didn't. And so now I don't dance per se. I'm 64 years old, right? So,
well, 25 years of dance, that's
yes, 25 years of dance education.
That's
and in
that's
the best
hard on the
in
body.
New York, for Miami, New York City, from this to that to this, that, until I finally, and I had, in little workshops and things, but I wasn't under any company, and companies, dancers have to do what they're told. It's called dance. But since I didn't have that, at the end, I said, okay, it's time to move on. Then it came. And I listened to that music for 2 years in a Walkman, walking down New York City. It's rock music, and the music is Led Zeppelin.
Nice.
Led Zeppelin to ballet. My professor of dance was Vladimir Dukodovsky. He's from Ballet Russe and the whole thing.
Nice.
And, very conservative. And when he saw it, he wasn't moved by much, but he did love it. And he said, well, that music is hedonistic, but, well, hedonistic, because it's Led Zeppelin.
Oh, I love that.
Well, Led Zeppelin is my favorite band.
And I was going to showcase it in a church, in the Trinity Church.
What a great contrast, Led Zeppelin and church.
Because it's related. It's the story of life.
Yeah, it is.
But it has both. It doesn't negate, right? The body. It doesn't negate the physical embodiment.
Well, even, for example, even the French, le petit mort. The orgasm is considered the little death. It's a minor transformation. Just le petit mort, the little death. Even similar concept.
Yes, that's another parallel experience of initiation.
Right.
Well, this has been great, guys.
So, Alex, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm glad you could join, and Lake, I'm glad you could join also.
Well, it was lovely.
Yeah, and so let's see.
Thank you for all your good organization. I would never made it unless you send that last minute.
The last notice there?
Yes, because you get some bombardment of emails. It's bizarre.
I know it's a problem. Anyway, in 5 days we're going to have another Mark of the Self session on Saturday with Colleen and Tim. And so if you have contributions for that, please do submit. And do you know what I'm talking about?
The minor arcana?
No. It's the tarot is only Monday night in this group. Okay.
Oh, the next webcast.
The Participation Mystique, where we're working with the Mark of the Self and doodling on marks of the self.
Right. And Colleen is leading that effort, and we're seeing what we feel from an artistic point of view. in an imagistic point of view.
And if you go on Skip's YouTube channel, there's an introductory video look for the one that's Participation Mystique, that's about 12 minutes long. There's an intro video, and then I think the last three of them are on there also.
Yeah.
Oh, so the theme is participation mystique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's well, it was also called doodling, but we've made it a little bit more highbrow by saying it's the mark of the self. But it's
right.
Very interesting
that's
process.
tricky. That's tricky.
Right, and in
It's like, I guess my last one is right. I had a poster made out of it, so it's.
Oh yeah.
That's your participation mystique.
That was out of my sketchbook. On this side, that 24x36. I blew it up. It's not that big in the sketchbook, but
right.
You can't really see very well from that far away.
You know, I modeled for artists also for a great many years.
Uh-huh.
Oh, nice.
Still doing it?
Art is all right. Still doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think I gave it up like a year or two ago.
I see. I think
Now I do photography also. So.
Photography.
But yeah, know a great many artists. And as a matter of fact, one of the artists, friends of mine, is the one who created all costumes for the tarot play. You know, they're all characters, right?
Yeah, sure.
They're alive.
Yeah.
So he created the costumes. So it's actually the tarot, but alive.
Terrific.
Without it's alive. It's the live tarot.
I really like that, because the Denver tarot.
It's never been done. And the lawyer would tell me, oh, gilded. I go, no. And it is so ancient. And it's never been done.
No, it has to be done.
Imagine
it should be. I remember in Denver, we had cards that were like 11 by 17, big study size tarot cards, a whole deck. And we would have these necklaces with a big plastic envelope, and we would draw a card, and then you had to play that card. So you would wear your card, and then you would act it out, literally. So
that's the beauty. The beauty of it is that I make it come alive, but anyone can create their own, can make it come alive. Once I show it, then they can do whatever variation of it they want.
Right.
They recreate it, the same nutcracker. There's a million nutcrackers.
Right.
But it has a base, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's the base, it's the tarot, and then.
Well, maybe its time has come, Gilda. We'll have to see.
It would be great. I said to myself, oh, you know, at that time, my inspiration was, you know, it went to its max, because I was dancing too, 6 days a week. So, but so now it would have to. I would just say this is what it is, and someone wants to do it. They can. I give suggestions, and I can. But it's no longer. I'm not the one that's. And I did everything, including the choreography and all of it. Okay. And walking the streets and giving it to people and all that. I burned out.
Yeah. Well, it so happens that we have a fairly large audience, and one of the key elements of Jungian psychology is that mental health is maintained by being creative. Okay. And so this is a concept that we're trying to get through. That's why we're doing Mark of the Self with Colleen, as you know, we all are creative, can be creative. And
absolutely.
And you know, unfortunately the rationalists squeezed art studies, and in many cases music studies, out of public education.
Yes.
Over the years, and we need to get it back, because well, we see
that's
why
what
we
makes
need
you
it.
alive.
Yeah. And we see what happens if you're dead,
that's life.
If you're only going to be a rationalist, then you end up attacking the capital type thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So you might want to read this book,
The Old
right?
Fool
That I
and
showed you,
Corruption of the Myth. Yes, yes.
right, by that author. It's very short. And
It's interesting you put that. My stepmother just sent this one to me. It's the alphabet versus the goddess, and it's the conflict between word and image.
Is that her book?
No, this it's by Leonard Schlein. He also wrote Art of Physics. But she and I were having a conversation, and I mentioned Elisa Markov's path of the sacred feminine literally being lost in translation, going from Chokmah to Sophia, which are both feminine nouns, and then Pneuma, P-N-E-U-M-A, which is a neutral noun. And then it became Logos, which is a masculine noun. And then Spiritus Sanctus, which is a higher dollar masculine noun, and just disappeared. But as we were talking about it, she's like, I just finished this book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. I'll send you a copy. So I think it's going to extend a lot of what that presentation that Elisa Markov did in regards to that path of the sacred feminine and word and image.
Yeah, and in that, Jung and dreams will give you everything.
Right.
Because in dreams, you are diving into the source where you came from.
Absolutely.
So, oh my God. So you say, I don't dance now. I'm creative with my dreams. I write them. It's just like, it's everything. It will show you how language originated. It showed me how language originated.
Yeah, sure.
It's a mark. It starts with just.
Yep, you're actually doing what Colleen suggests.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
You're naturally doing.
Yes, it's really impressive. And Patricia Albert, you might want to look up Patricia Albert, A-L-B-A-R-E. She has the we space is very big, and she has a practice in which you're with someone else and you go to the point of origin, your point of origin, people's different. And then you see what happens in the we space. It could be anything, whatever arises. And with different people, different things arise.
Surely.
Once you go there, and it will mind bottle you because what you're doing is dreaming awake.
And can you spell her last name again?
You're dreaming awake with someone else, but she doesn't do dream work. But I am sharing with you because I do dream work that what they're actually doing is in that exercise. It's a process, they do it for 10 minutes. She has a whole global organization. So you are activating the we space. We are activating here the we space. Okay?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding this word.
We
W-E.
We space.
Oh, there's summits and there's all kinds of organizations that work with we space, ways of accessing we space.
Can you spell her last name again?
A-L-B-A-R-E.
Okay, Albert.
Yeah.
Albert.
Patricia.
Okay.
Yeah, she's very well known. She has some books and so on, and she has a global. They meet and they do that practice. It's a very interesting practice. She sometimes gives it. So they break out in diets, and then you practice. Try practicing with your friend, but you have to go to nothing. You stand in nothing, and then you first you talk, then I talk, and then we both talk. We both think, and that's one day I was doing that with someone, and I was a word of language. It showed me how language originated. Out of the space, light becomes, and then light starts getting narrower and narrower until it forms. And when it forms into a line or a mark, then the line is what creates the letters. I mean, that's the visual part. The other part, sound. Sound is the oldest of all our senses. That's why mantras are so powerful. Inner sound. Sound is vibration, and that I have a mentor that I work with, and his body rings. He rings, thing, and then so that's an advanced practice. Is it, you can ring yourself out of disease. You know, the ringing connects you to source, and but you're a participant, but you're not in the lead, but you are in the committee.
Right. So singing bowls is another example.
Right.
And if you've seen someone take a violin bow on the side of a steel plate with couscous, just dry couscous all over it, they'll play a certain note and it will all move to a sacred geometry shape. And that's and what's interesting is even the sacred geometry with the triangles for Om, for example, is 430. If you play 438 hertz, it'll make that pattern. Just the sound makes that pattern. So it's,
you might want to on Sundays at 3:30. His name is Jeffrey Thompson, Thompson, and he gives a podcast. And you know Jeffrey Thompson?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, he works with binaural beats. You know, so. And he's healed all kinds of people. You can heal because he takes it. You can only do this with headphones because you put one sound here and a different one in the other ear, and then you send it to the brain. The brain said, "Oh, what's that?" Because we everything we hear goes through this one, that one, and then at the same time. But when you put earphones, this is something new of our century. You can actually put inside send the signal inside your brain different with at the same time.
Right.
A different one here and a different one here because you're covered. And that one is not listening to what this one's listening to. So you're sending it to your heads, to your centers, and it does all sorts of things. He has that might be the way of healing in the future.
Yeah, he must be a cousin of mine because I have a maternal grandmother who was a Thompson.
From Scotland?
No, Sweden. She's from Swedish.
Okay, well, I think he mentioned something about way up in the north. Somewhere there, and there were Norse people there. In actuality, that whole area is mixed with the Norse.
Yeah.
So
Norse, we went everywhere. It's like even the myth of the white Indians, the blonde Indians in the north, where Native Americans would not go up towards Michigan and Hudson because of the myth of the white Indians. Well, they were the Vikings that had sailed into the Hudson and just set up
white
shop.
Indians.
Yeah, and they were vicious, and so they just kind of gave them their room. So you guys can have that land. Just take it.
Yeah. So that's somebody to he's very knowledgeable, and there's a whole thing going on now with the brain entrainment and all of that. And they'll tell you that when you get into homeostasis, it's called ding, that it clicks, then your body heals. Everything your body heals. That's why it's so important to be embodied, because your body has an intelligence. Has an intelligence of its own.
Well, most shamans will also say, take care of the body first, and then everything else comes later. I mean, because otherwise, what's the point? I mean, if you corrupt the vessel.
I'll give you the secret of Jesus Christ at the cross. It came to me the other day. I said, what's going on here? They nail his hands and his feet, right? So for 2,000 years, we've been playing the brain. So now it's bring it all together. Hands, feet. Through the feet also, energy goes through the feet. So people who are not embodied, they're missing. They're up here. They're missing. They're not integral. So they're not. They're forced. They don't. The core. They can't live in their core of their body. Their body is a temple.
Well, it's interesting. That's one of the things that the health effects of walking versus running. I mean, running being an impact on your feet, which I'm not going to say anything good or bad about it. But walking, you actually massage your foot,
Mhm.
whether you walk toe to heel to be stealthy or whether you walk heel to toe, just normally. But all of the organ sensors at the bottom of your feet, like reflexology, are then massaged when you
Yeah.
walk. And when you walk smoothly, they're massaged even better.
Right. Like when you
So-
walk in the sand at the beach.
Exactly.
And so there's a whole map of your of your whole body in your
Right,
in
on
the
the
sole of your
underside of
feet.
each feet. Right.
There's a whole map of your body in your eye, in the iris of your eye.
Mhm.
So eventually you realize there's a whole map of your body in everywhere.
Right, right.
And it mirrors the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does. It does.
Mhm. So okay,
Okay, well,
wow.
All right.
it's lovely to
Yeah.
speak with you,
Right.
Gilda, and
Well, it's lovely to speak to you too.
we'll,
Thank you for showing up.
well, I'll tell you, I had an interesting day, but in any case,
What sign are you?
Libra.
And Jordan?
I'm a Sagittarius with a Capricorn moon.
Okay.
Yourself?
Sagittarius.
The huntress. Huh?
With a Gemini moon.
Oh, nice.
An Aquarius rising. Monkey in the fire monkey. So I had to learn the hard way to be still.
So meanwhile, we're making meetups on the YouTube chat. Nicole and Justin Case have
That Blake.
up.
I don't hate Scorpio. In fact, it's one of my favorite signs, Blake.
Yeah, and Nicole, it turns out, is a Libra too. Nicole is one of our active members who also lives in Australia, and for them it's noon on Tuesday when
they're 16 hours in the future.
Right, although that's about to change.
Right.
So Nicole says, Gilda, I Googled you. Who are you, woman? I love your communication. I don't know. Do you have a Wikipedia page or something, Gilda?
No, I'm very undercover.
Okay.
I suppose, but it's not much that I did myself.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't know.
Yeah, you may be surprised.
Oh, Facebook.
Right.
Maybe Facebook.
If you put your name into Google, you might be surprised.
I am afraid to put my name.
No.
Well, I actually have to keep Google alerts because of my tarot deck to make sure that when it gets, not if, but when it gets pirated, that I go shut them down. So, I mean, Google's got a great service. I mean, you get Google alerts to anytime a certain set of keywords comes up. And so I've kind of got some codes with my own published work. So, I mean, it's never more than 24 hours that click. I gotta go do a little vigilante work.
At least you know what you're doing. But
well, and
I
some of them I have to leave alone because the sites look too risky just with the URL. Like, all I'm going to do is get a virus by going there. So I'm just going to send it to my publisher and they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I looked up my name on Google, and there are something like 7.5 million listings for Donald L. Conover and 4.2 million for Skip Conover.
You're kidding.
Well, you know what's funny, Skip? When I first discovered you was on Becca, Dr. Becca Tarnas's participatory imagination session, and so I'm like, who's this Skip Conover guy? And I have to say, you were easy to find. So it popped right up. It popped right up on Google. So
yeah,
I'm working on security. Oh, God.
What? You're working on?
Oh, yeah, because what happened? You moved. Oh, there you are.
You're still here.
Well, because being a photographer, and I did a lot of self-portraits, and things that go through the net, all of a sudden, emails can be seen and so on. So in any information that's moved through.
Right.
Yeah, well, I've always taken the position, anything that I put on the internet, including private emails, I should assume that they're in
Right.
public domain because
Yeah.
life.
My friend sent him the scans. He lives now in Romania, and he sent me scans, and I'm going,
yeah. So there are no secrets on the internet, by the way.
You know, I used to with Google. You know, when Gmail used to have the ads that would flash across the top of your email. I used to just type myself a dummy email and send it to myself with whatever the next 6 topics I was going to be researching over the next 2 weeks. And it would never fail. Within an hour, you go to Amazon and buy this book on participatory this and that. And it was so funny because I would make them advertise to me what I wanted by writing fake emails of research I needed to do. And then they do most of the work for me. Because I'd get
I'm
ads.
glad you're being creative. I had a reaction for a while.
Yeah.
So I need to turn that card into creativity instead of, oh my God.
Yeah.
I stepped out of life.
If they hack me, they're going to, okay, cool. You can pay my bills. Thank you.
Yeah,
well, I work, dreams are the thing that I work with now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I do this every day. I've been doing this for 5 years every day, and so on. And so I have a dream master.
Personal dreams? Oh, you have a dream coach?
I have a dream master, yes.
A dream master.
But a Western one.
Yeah.
Jungian.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That counts as far as we're concerned, or I'm concerned anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Though I got layers of Kriya Yoga and layers of Tibetan Buddhism. And so I appreciated your wife. She gave a very beautiful talk and lucid dreaming and different things. It's all so that's I channeled it into the dreams, all of the different things that I do, and it's all encompassing.
Yeah,
it has everything.
When I met Debbie, I met her first on an email exchange, and we claimed that we're the first couple to meet online and marry because we met online 10 years before the World Wide Web got started, or at least became public.
Right.
And nobody's ever claimed anybody earlier than us. But I met her online, and then I physically met her. We lived 400 miles apart at the time, but she lived in Washington, and I wanted to meet her. And so we met one fine day, August the 29th, 1985, and she was wearing this fire engine red dress. Silk dress, and I walked in and zoom.
A dakini.
Yeah, I was decapitated, and I know that everybody that ever meets Debbie or spends time with her just becomes enchanted with her because she just has this spiritual way of being with you.
Yeah, she understands it.
And so I always think I'm pretty lucky to have her around. And when it comes my time for the great dirt nap, at least she'll be good company. Since since she works at hospice and
POA. She practices POA.
Yeah, she's empowered with POA, so she can do POA for people, and she's actually twice empowered with POA, and so lots of things have happened around Buddhism in our household. But in fact, I can just do a short demonstration here. I'll just take away my cloaking for a minute.
And I've just heard the change in snoring with my huge dog. It means she's going to wake up. I'm going to go ahead and go so I can.
Right. So this
good to see you guys.
This is
Take care.
Debbie's workspace, and you see the Buddha in that image, and lots of gongs and things that relate also to our time in Japan. But that particular Buddha image is one she took in a temple in Hawaii.
In which island?
Oahu.
Oahu?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there, and I've been to almost all the different different places, lots of temples, and the other island too, the smaller one.
This is the one in Kaneohe, I think. It's up on the mountain, on the side of a mountain in Kaneohe, which is.
So have you been to Nepal?
East. No, I've never been to Nepal. I would love to go, but I've been to India 44 times.
Oh, okay. So north and south?
All over. I built a company there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, a public company.
Oh.
And had 40 production centers in India all over.
What kind? What kind?
We were doing medical transcription. I was the first mover in the industry in India. And now there are 25,000 Indian medical transcriptionists.
Oh, medical transcription. They write what's.
Well, we basically in the early 90s, we developed a technology where we could take recordings of what doctors were dictating in hospitals.
Okay.
And once it's in a recording, it's a file, it's a computer file, right? So we would send the file to India and get it typed up over there and then bring it back. And
because they speak English, yeah.
Right. And so we originally thought that the issue would be to teach people to type, but you can teach people to type in 2 weeks, but to teach people to be a medical transcriptionist, you actually have to train them in medicine, which takes a year or so.
And all that animal, I knew someone who, and she had a problem after a while because she was an animal intuitive, and she kept telling, please don't send me anything with animal testing. Have you ever done in Ayurveda?
Well, yes, we certainly have done some, and we have had partners who are Ayurvedic doctors and so on. So
yeah, in India, that it's really amazing.
Yeah,
very amazing. So, have you done transcriptions with transcribing what Ayurveda doctors say?
No, we do. We have strictly done what American doctors have said.
I see.
In the end, when I got out of the business, we had 650 hospitals and doctors' offices as clients, and about 6,000 medical transcriptionists in India.
Wow, that's very innovative.
Yeah.
You are a true businessman.
Yeah, but that was 15 years. I retired 15 years ago from that. So had to find something new to do. So that's what I've been doing with.
And what is that?
Well, Jungian psychology, basically, although.
Yes, it's growing exponentially.
Although, yeah, it certainly is. But my old partners in the healthcare industry are now drawing me back in. So my business career is trying to lurch back into existence.
Oh.
And whether it succeeds or not is another question.
You might open a little branch of Ayurveda.
Yeah, well, it'll be a little different. One of the things we're doing is the International Pandemic Preparedness Center, believe it or not.
Preparedness Center?
Yes. In other words, I have a colleague who has developed, among other things, among many other things, but developed a way to diagnose electronically and with artificial intelligence where there is an outbreak of, well, at least 20 different illnesses, including TB and Zika and now coronavirus. And the way he does it is basically by following something like Twitter, let's say, and maybe it's multiple things, but let's say it's Twitter. And if you mention on Twitter that you have a headache and your neighbor mentions that they have a headache on Twitter, actually they can pinpoint, after a little bit more information coming from various neighbors, they can figure out what illness is going around in your community to within 400 meters.
Wow.
And so the power of that is it can tell nation states where they have to put resources for various illnesses and so on. So it's very
That's impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
You know, I had a dream the other day, like a week ago or so, and it was, let's say, in the state capitol, whichever one it was, and the woman and other government officials, and then they're all standing up, and this woman is declaring war.
Yeah.
She says, "We're at war."
Mm-hmm.
Ding. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So lots of changes. But a lot of people, Ayurveda is impressive, really impressive.
Yeah.
I had when I was in India, I had a sinus infection I caught. That, I mean, you could feel chunks of nose, part of my nose coming out, and it wouldn't stop. You know how cold has his rhythm and then nothing. Sure. I was on a pilgrimage, and I always wanted to meet a Siddha doctor. So I guess I got the disease so I could meet a Siddha doctor. I mean, this is sometimes how these things work. And he asked me, I couldn't travel or anything. And he asked me some questions, you know, I would sleep 2 hours a night if. And I answered my questions, and he said, yeah, you know, from 4 to 7 days, and I'll heal you. Okay, fine. But I trusted the person. So he took a leaf, it's called Laki leaf, Laki, and inside a cheesecloth, and I would go to his house and lie down. He would put a few drops on one nostril, a few drops on the other one, like 2 or 3. And I would burn for like 10 minutes. I would feel burning. By the 7th day, my skin was like porcelain. I mean, I was completely cleared. I mean, completely, like if someone, like Clorox. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the skin became clear. Everything became. So you see, there's a harmony. And he said it was like a coral that had grown and grown and grown. I guess that particular leaf melted the coral, and no surgery, nothing. Yeah. So
very similar to acupuncture and
I've had plenty of acupuncture too.
And American doctors can't get their minds around it because they're all rationalists. And it's not that you know, acupuncture and Ayurveda are not rational. They are, but they're rational in a different way. They work with the natural, the whole natural rhythms of the body and
so maybe you can add a little branch to whatever it is that's coming that includes Ayurveda.
I will keep it in mind.
And since you're very good and since you have all that experience in India.
Yeah. I've had some very interesting experiences, I will say, with the Ayurvedic, but
they're a bunch.
They're a bunch.
Yes. And there are very many, a lot of them are, you know, mystical beings. And actually, in southern India, they're trying to compile. I have some books, and from where I was initiated, and medicine is very old, and it's been written. They used to write the medical treatises was one of the things that they could write and not get burned, by another religious group that may come on board whenever. So that was one of the ways in which they kept, and they wrote it in palm leaves. And a lot of it has to do with medicine.
Yeah. So how many trips did you make to India?
Two.
Okay.
Pilgrimages, north and south.
Okay, good for you.
Yeah. So
did you go to Trivandrum?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see the Nepalese Buddhists in Trivandrum on the beach at the Ashoka Hotel, just below the Ashoka Hotel?
I stayed at the near the stupa in Nepal, where the stupa and all the two Tibetan Buddhists are. All the different, the Nyingma and the other one, and I met a few. I've had many Buddhist teachers.
Yeah, good.
Many lamas.
Well, we've had it around here. And Debbie and I were both initiated in Japan, so we had a lot of Buddhism.
In which kind?
In Buddhism, in Japan, it's mainly
Zen.
Well, no, it's more Amitabha, Amita Buddha. Okay.
Oh, Amitabha?
Yeah, Amitabha Buddhism.
Okay. Amitabha.
Yeah. And
that's Vajrayana, right?
Yeah, well, there is, then there is Zen, which of course is Chan in China. And so there's, there's the goddess Kuan Yin, right? Which is Kanan in Japanese. And so, for example, let me see if I have my
So did you ever go see Buto dance?
Buto dance?
Yeah. B-O-T-O.
Not that I recall.
That's Japanese. It's very cool.
Well, I've seen a lot of dance in Japan, but I'm not sure what I was seeing, to be honest with you. Because my first 3 years in Japan were when I was 15. And so I'll just show you this one statue of Kanan. This is...
isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, this is Ofuna Kanan. And it was about a 8-minute train ride from where I lived as a child, and or in my early teens, 15 to 17. And I would see it every day, and I just found it was very peace-giving. In English, they call it the goddess of mercy, but of course it's Kuan Yin. But in Japanese, Kuan Yin is Kanan.
It's pronounced Kana.
Pardon?
How is it pronounced? Kana?
Kanan, K-A.
Kanan.
Yeah, K-A-N-N-O-N. And this one was built, it was finished just the month before I arrived in Japan. And it was in honor of the Japanese war dead, which I didn't know until only 2 or 3 years ago. But the idea is that Kanan went into hell for the Japanese soldiers that died in World War II and redeemed their souls into heaven. And that is the role of Kuan Yin also. So in Buddhism and Zen Buddhism.
Yeah, we have a Kuan Yin here, actually.
Yeah, right.
Who's iPad Blake?
Oh, that's one of my followers on Facebook who prefers to remain anonymous, and we respect him in that way. And if you keep your video closed and you stay muted, you don't show up on the YouTube replay. All of our lovely conversation right now will be on the YouTube replay, right? But Blake will not be on it.
Oh, oh, so this conversation, it's going to be on the YouTube.
Yep, it's being recorded, and
Oh,
and so the replay will be on shortly after we hang up. And if anybody is, how long are we into it? We're now into it 3 hours. So
oh goodness, okay.
So forever,
good enough.
For whoever's going to hang in with us for 3 hours, they will hear our lovely conversation here at the end. But
I see.
So,
well, it's been a lovely evening.
Yeah, and so
thank you.
So Blake says,
oh, you do.
Blake says, thanks guys. I'll be more visible in following sessions. Thanks everyone. I look forward to these sessions more, and I find it all very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing your brains. Good night. Okay, so thank you, Blake, for
Invisible Blake.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 So I'll see you again, Gilda.
Well, thank you. I'll see you next time. Have a lovely evening.
Yeah,
Skip.
take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, by the way, you do know that you can register for other events, right? I don't know if you've done that, but
I try my best. I don't know. I register once and I put a few things and.
Okay, I'm just gonna give you the link here on the chat, and I'll put it on the YouTube chat also. And so if you follow that link, then you can see if you're following our other events. So
okay.
So the Colleen Keybera things will be coming up on Wisdom Path Colloquium. And,
all right, let me copy that.
So anyway, okay.
Okay, great. Have a